Out of nowhere, the sky suddenly turned red. A strange humming sound echoed across the city. Before anyone could understand what was happening, pieces of debris slowly started floating into the air. Then something appeared above the tallest building. At the very center was a glowing purple core. It pulsed again and again, almost like a living heart. The space around it twisted violently. Within seconds, a massive vortex formed in the middle of the structure. Broken platforms floated around it, connected by heavy chains that rattled loudly as the entire structure trembled. It was a gate, and whatever was on the other side was about to come through. A team appeared before the dungeon. They were known as the Elite Team. Each of them carried an overwhelming presence. Their clothes, their weapons, even the way they looked down at the world below showed that they were different. Some looked like nobles. Others looked like battle-hardened warriors. But the moment they appeared, one thing became clear. They were the strongest. At the city's central square, a newscaster was broadcasting the event on a giant screen. The reporter announced that at 2 p.m. this afternoon, the elite team known as the Divine Rhinoceros Corps, hailed as one of the strongest teams in the world, had officially launched their challenge against the final SSS-level dungeon, the Isle of Sighs. People gathered in the square and watched the huge screen in surprise. Many of them couldn't believe what they were hearing. The reporter continued, explaining that the Divine Rhinoceros Corps had already cleared the other two SSS-level abysses before this one. And this final dungeon was known to be the most difficult dungeon in history. For 10 years, countless top-tier teams had tried to conquer it. Every single one of them was completely wiped out. One of the people in the crowd said that for all these years, no team had ever managed to even reach the final boss room. Another person nodded and said he was curious about what was really inside that dungeon. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man in the crowd snorted in frustration. He said the team was just a bunch of pretentious show-offs. If they failed to clear the dungeon in the end, he would roast them online without mercy. The reporter then revealed the leader of the Divine Rhinoceros Corps. The man leading the challenge was none other than the one known as the strongest human, Yan Han-shuo, RMC. From head to toe, Yan Han-shuo was wearing 7 pieces of full SSS-grade equipment. Each piece came from clearing SSS-level challenges. In a way, they were like badges of honor. Only someone who had survived those impossible battles could wear them. Yan Han-shuo stood calmly at the front of the team. He looked tough, confident, and unbelievably handsome. And more importantly, he looked incredibly strong. This year, Yan Han-shuo is turning 32 years old. The world he lived in was a place filled with danger, challenges, and opportunities. In the same year he was born, strange space-time gates suddenly began appearing all over the world. At first, people didn't pay much attention to them, but as time went on, ferocious beasts started pouring out from these gates and attacking humanity. Humans fought back, and during those battles, they discovered something important. Killing these beasts could drop equipment, and those could make people stronger. This discovery changed everything. Since then, humanity has continued fighting the beasts and holding its ground. But in this world, money didn't decide everything, and what mattered most was potential. Equipment and weapon ranks were divided from lowest to highest, F, E, D, C, B, A, and the highest levels, S, SS, and SSS. But being able to use high-grade equipment depended entirely on a person's potential. Potential couldn't be changed or influenced by anything. If someone's potential was only E-grade, then even if they were unbelievably rich, it wouldn't matter. They would never be able to equip anything above E-grade for their entire life. But if someone had S-grade potential or higher, even if they were born poor, countless organizations and academies would fight to recruit them and train them to become elite fighters. As for Yan Han-shuo, when he was just 5 years old, he was tested and discovered to have SSS-level potential. A true prodigy. People were shocked when they learned how young he was, and from that moment on, Yan Han-shuo began living what many people called a cheat code life. At age 8, he cleared an E-level dungeon. He became the youngest person in history to ever do it. At 14, he cleared a C-level dungeon. At 18, he solo cleared a B-level dungeon. And at 25, he led the first human team in history to conquer an S-level dungeon. Perhaps because he was born in the same year the beasts first appeared, over time, people began calling him something else. The chosen one who will drive out the beasts. Many believed that one day Yan Han-shuo would lead humanity to completely wipe out the monsters and restore the world to normal. Back to the present. The vortex in the sky continued spinning violently. Yan Han-shuo looked at his team and gave the order to prepare. They were about to enter the dungeon. His teammates responded confidently, as if they had been ready for this moment their entire lives. Yan Hanshuo then pulled out a special card. With a single move, he activated it. The chains surrounding the dungeon began to break one by one. As the final chain shattered, the Divine Rhinoceros Corps moved forward together. This SSS-level dungeon, the Abyss of Size, was the last abyss they had yet to challenge. Yan Hanshuo had full confidence that they would clear it. But what he didn't know was that this mission would change his life forever. Inside the dungeon, the environment was dark and extremely creepy. The air felt heavy and cold. Enemies were already hiding in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. But what they didn't realize was that the team had already detected them. The monsters suddenly rushed out and attacked. But the Divine Rhinoceros Corps reacted instantly. They dodged the attacks with ease. Swords flashed, weapons smashed down. Monsters were cut down one after another. There were countless enemies surrounding them, and among them, there was a giant version of the creature. The team noticed it immediately. The monster looked just as ugly as the others, but it was much larger and far more dangerous. Still, the team didn't panic. One of the members released a snake. The snake quickly slithered forward, wrapped tightly around the giant monster's leg, and bit into it. The giant monster froze. A message appeared. Target poisoned by advanced poison. The effect was immediate as the affected body part completely lost its mobility. The giant monster suddenly dropped to one knee. Another member pulled out a flaming bow. He charged his attack. 2 arrows were released at lightning speed. Then both arrows flew straight into the monster's eyes. The giant screamed in pain as the arrows pierced deeply. At that moment, another team member stepped forward. He had bright red hair and carried a huge axe-like weapon that looked very heavy. Without any hesitation, he walked to the front and stood right in front of the giant monster. He showed no fear at all. He looked straight at the ugly creature, and even called this hideous monster out, like it was just another enemy he was about to take down. He quickly noticed something. The giant monster's HP had dropped below 20%. His Reaper class passive skill had been activated. This skill increased his damage by 30%. Without hesitation, the red-haired warrior leaped into the air. Raising his massive weapon high above his head, he swung it down with full force, aiming directly for the giant monster's head. One quick swoosh. In a single smooth swing, the axe cut straight through the giant's neck. The blade moved so fast that for a moment it almost looked like nothing had happened. Then the giant's massive head slowly slid off and crashed onto the ground with a heavy thud. The red-haired man casually rested his axe on his shoulder and let out a proud laugh. The victory looked easy, and he seemed pleased with how clean the strike was. But little did he know, the giant's eyes suddenly turned red. Even though the head was already lying on the ground, those glowing red eyes opened again. The red-haired man immediately felt that something had moved. Then the giant's headless body twitched. The corpse slowly began to move again. Muscles tightened, fingers curled, and the huge body shifted unnaturally, as if it were still alive. Seeing a headless giant move like that sent a chill down the red-haired man's spine. The sight was creepy enough to make anyone freeze. But the fear didn't stop him. He rushed forward again and swung his axe with even more force. The heavy blade sliced across the giant's body in a wide arc. The strike split the giant cleanly into 2 halves. The cut was extremely sharp. Blood burst out and splattered everywhere, staining the ground and spraying across the battlefield. Even the giant's severed head seemed to react. Its glowing red eyes widened as if it could still feel the pain despite being separated from the body. The red-haired man didn't slow down. He continued attacking, swinging his axe again and again at the body to make sure the monster would never move again. Yan Hanshuo reminded his teammate that this was an SSS-level dungeon and that they should not judge the enemies using ordinary logic. He warned everyone to stay focused and keep their minds sharp at all times. The red-haired man quickly agreed. The team continued exploring the dungeon, but not long after they were suddenly attacked again. The team immediately came to a stop. More giants appeared this time, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground as they approached from different directions. As the enemies slowly surrounded them, Yan Hanshuo thought about the situation. It started to feel like the monsters in this dungeon relied on overwhelming numbers rather than individual strength. Perhaps it was a swarm-type dungeon. After all, none of the corps that had challenged this place before had ever made it out alive. Because of that, all the information about the dungeon remained sealed. There was almost no reliable intel about what waited inside. Yan Hanshuo quickly turned to Sammo and ordered her to slow the enemy's movements and keep them confined within one area. Sammo, who looked like a quiet nun, immediately obeyed. She gently closed her eyes and clasped her hands together as if praying. Her calm expression made her look harmless and peaceful. She prayed to the Holy Mother, asking for mercy so that she could guide them back. But suddenly, the shy nun revealed something completely unexpected. Hidden beneath her dress were numerous guns. She pulled them out one after another without hesitation. She was no ordinary nun, she's clearly a deadly woman. And the place she intended to guide the enemies back to was hell. Bullets immediately started flying in every direction as she fired continuously from multiple guns. She looked almost like a maniac as she kept firing from one side to another, sending waves of bullets through the battlefield. The bullets pierced through enemy after enemy. At the same time, a charm effect was activated. Charm increased by 10. The smaller enemies suddenly changed their targets. Instead of attacking the team, they began attacking the giant monsters. Under the charm effect, the smaller creatures rushed toward the giants. They crawled up the giants' legs, climbed across their massive bodies, and attacked their heads aggressively. Another teammate stepped forward with a sword. He activated his rainbow skill. It was none other than Yan Hanshuo. The ground cracked open, and several large boulders rose into the air as if gravity had suddenly disappeared. Then, he used Lotus. With a series of fast and precise swings, his sword sliced the floating boulders into dozens of smaller pieces. The cuts were incredibly sharp and powerful. The boulder fragments shot through the air like deadly projectiles and slammed directly into the enemies. The force of the sword strikes was so great that even monsters standing nearby were sliced apart by the impact. Some enemies were cut down by the blade itself, while others were crushed or pierced by the flying boulders. As the saying goes, according to Yan Hanshuo, killing without cruelty means ending the enemy instantly so they suffer less. But the red-haired man jokingly pointed out that Yan Hanshuo had already smashed the enemies into tiny pieces and still had the nerve to say that. Our MC simply ordered the team to clear the area. Soon the battlefield became quiet. The ground was covered with defeated enemies. Blood and broken bodies were scattered everywhere. After confirming that the area was safe, the team continued exploring deeper into the dungeon. Eventually, they reached a massive gate. The gate was enormous. Carved into its surface were many strange faces, and large stone guardians stood beside it as if they were silently protecting the entrance. Yan Hanshuo told the team that the next thing they would encounter was most likely the boss. The gate was probably the entrance to the boss room. No one had ever reached this point in the dungeon before. He ordered everyone to apply the buffs they needed and maximize their status. Then, he instructed Yuanxi to give him the SS grade critical potion, the SSS grade power capsule, and 2 mental focus pills. Yuanxi immediately understood and handed all of them to their leader. Our MC knew that the effects of these items would only last for about a minute and a half, maybe even less. Because of that, the fight would need to end quickly. A long battle would be dangerous. The red-haired man also handed his captain another potion. It was a newly developed enhancer that could increase the effects of all buffs by 20%. Yan Hanshuo drank the potions one by one. Then he said that whether they succeed or not, it would all come down to the next few minutes. Once he was done, he immediately opened the gate. The space behind it was huge. Large stone guardians stood inside the chamber, but strangely, unlike other dungeons, there were no obvious signs of danger right after entering. Yan Hanshuo stepped inside first, while the rest of the team stayed behind and simply watched him. They did not move. He noticed this immediately and wondered why no one was following him. Then suddenly something felt wrong. His body weakened. He fell to his knees and coughed up blood. It was clearly connected to the potions he had just taken. Confusion filled his mind as he tried to understand what was happening. He looked down at his hands and noticed something strange. His clothes were becoming loose. His sleeves were sliding past his hands. Everything he was wearing suddenly looked too big. Yan Hanshuo stared at himself in disbelief. He could clearly feel it happening. His body was getting smaller. The reason was the paralysis poison. It had reduced his body's functions by 90%. A warning appeared in front of him. Shock imminent! Yan Hanshuo dropped to his knees on the ground. Panic filled his mind as he tried to understand what was going on. What the hell was happening to him? Then more warning alerts appeared one after another. It stated that the wearer's level was insufficient and the equipment he was using was being forcibly removed. One by one, all the powerful items he had earned through years of battle suddenly fell off his body. His weapons, accessories, everything, all the equipment that symbolized his victories disappeared in seconds. Even though something strange was happening to him, Yan Hanshuo still managed to warn his teammates. He told them that something was wrong with the boss room, but his teammates didn't look worried at all. In fact, they looked completely relaxed, almost like they had been expecting this. Samo walked forward and stopped right in front of Yan Hanshuo. She looked down at him and smirked. Then she casually said that the potion had worked. That was when it finally hit him. It was them. They had planned this from the very beginning. Yan Hanshuo couldn't believe it. His own teammates had betrayed him. They all stood there, looking down at him and admiring the result of what they had done. The red-haired man then spoke up. He confirmed that what Yan Hanshuo drank earlier wasn't a buff potion. It was actually a shrinking potion. Samo laughed and teased him again. That even as a kid, she said, he still looked handsome. The red-haired man continued explaining their plan. He said the reason for all this was simple. Their captain was just too strong. Even if all 6 of them fought Yan Hanshuo together while he was wearing his full set of SSS-grade equipment, it would still be hard to tell who would win. So they came up with a different idea. If they turned him younger, his body wouldn't meet the physical requirements needed to use SSS-grade equipment. And once that happened, all his equipment would automatically fall off. One by one, they started picking up the items that had fallen to the ground. The powerful SSS-grade equipment that once belonged to Yan Hanshuo was now being taken by his own teammates. Samo grabbed one of the items and laughed. She said she was the only one in the team who didn't own an SSS-grade piece yet, so she decided to take the necklace. Another teammate picked up Yan Hanshuo's belt. He had wanted that belt for a long time. With it, the duration of his ultimate skill could be doubled. The red-haired man happily picked up the Eye of the Star Vault. This item increased damage against low HP enemies by 50%. With this equipment, he said he would become a god when cleaning up the battlefield. The others also picked up the items they wanted, each one choosing whatever suited them best. Meanwhile, Yan Hanshuo remained kneeling on the ground. He still couldn't understand it. Why? Why would they betray him like this? Why would they betray their own captain? The red-haired man crouched down so that he was at the same height as Yan Hanshuo. He smirked and said he originally planned to explain everything, but Yan Shi had told him to keep quiet, so there was nothing he could do about it. Yan Hanshuo slowly turned his head toward Yan Shi. He asked if it was him. Was he the one who planned all of this, and why? Yan Shi looked down at the sword in his hand. Then he calmly replied, "For someone who was about to die, there was nothing he needed to explain." His eyes were as cold as ever. After that, the team turned around and walked straight toward the gate. They didn't even bother looking back. They left Yan Hanshuo behind. Alone, confused, hopeless, powerless. He collapsed onto the ground, barely able to move. Before closing the gate behind them, one of them casually said something. They would see him in the next life. After they left, Yan Hanshuo tried to stand up. 3 years. 5 years. 8 years. All those years of friendship. And it ended in betrayal. He still couldn't believe they would do something like this, but before he could think any further, a group of giant monsters suddenly appeared. These were different from the giant enemies they had fought earlier. These monsters looked far stronger, more intimidating. Just one attack from them would probably kill him instantly. One of the monsters stood behind him. This was it. There was no way he could win. And just like that, he died. After everything he had achieved, after being known as the strongest, he fell just like that. A notification suddenly appeared. It congratulated Yan Hanshuo for completing a hidden quest. Sacrifice for righteousness. The quest conditions were: allow all teammates to retreat safely, remain alone inside the boss room, and surrender all equipment before dying. Every single condition had been fulfilled. The notification continued. Since Yan Hanshuo had met all the requirements, the system would arrange rebirth. However, this reward could only be used once. Moments later, Yan Hanshuo opened his eyes. He found himself standing in front of a statue. It was a statue of a woman. No, it was actually an angel statue kneeling on the ground. Hands of monsters holding her as if the monsters are trying to bind her. Our MC's still confused. Why? Was he alive? He quickly looked at the system notification and read it carefully. He had never heard of this quest before. Did something like this even exist? Yan Hanshuo didn't know whether to call this luck or not. But one thing was certain. He was unbelievably lucky to still be alive. Then he remembered something. He walked closer to the statue and used its surface to look at his reflection. That was when he noticed something. His body was still small. It hadn't returned to its original form. Another notification suddenly appeared. It explained that the rebirth arranged by the system would perfectly replicate the player's body at the moment of death, with 0 errors. In other words, his current body was exactly the same as when he died. Everything that was happening now was completely unexpected. His teammates had no idea about the hidden quest. They hadn't planned anything related to the system. They simply wanted to betray him. The reason he shrank was only because he drank the mysterious potion they had secretly switched earlier. Since the system revived him after his death, it also revived him after the potion had already taken effect, which meant he stayed small. So even if he came back from the dead, what difference would it make? Right now, his body looked around 15 or 16 years old. Back then, his strength at that age should have only been around C grade. The images of his former teammates appeared in his mind. Even though he had been unbeatable among his peers at that age, it's meaningless now. The weakest among his former teammates was still SS grade. Defeating them was nothing but a dream. Yan Hanshuo slowly sat down on the floor. He thought quietly about what he should do next. After a long moment, he let out a deep sigh. Then he simply lay down on the ground. For now, he decided to just accept what had happened. But then, another notification appeared. It reminded him that aside from rebirth, completing the hidden quest, Sacrifice for Righteousness, also granted another reward. No level limit system. This system allowed the user to equip any item, regardless of their level, that it's non-transferable and permanently bound to the host. Yan Hanshuo's eyes widened in shock. Did this mean, even though his body and level had gone down, he could still become the strongest again? A notification suddenly appeared. Limitless System. Its full name is the Limitless Restriction Equipment System. The system explained that the host who possessed it could equip any level of equipment, no longer bound by their own rank or level. Yan Hanshuo carefully reads every line. The more he read, the more shocked he became. The system was telling him that he could equip any weapon or equipment without being restricted by his current level. That meant even though he was only a C rank, he could still equip B rank, A rank, or even S rank weapons. Maybe even higher. For someone like him, this sounded almost unbelievable. After everything that had just happened, after being betrayed by the very team he trusted, he found it hard to believe anything anymore. He even questioned the system, asking whether this function was really guaranteed. First, the system was dead-ass silent. The system responded in a strangely casual tone, almost like it was joking. If he did not want the ability, he could simply ignore it and forget the system existed. Yan Hanshuo immediately replied that he wanted it very badly. Another notification appeared in front of him. The system detected that the host's current level was C rank. As a result, it would issue the first reward, any B rank weapon. The weapon would be non-tradable and permanently bound to the host. The host would now choose a weapon type. Suddenly, countless weapon types appeared in front of Yan Hanshuo. Each one floated in the air like a projection. Short blade, gunfire weapons, greatsword, scythe, hammer, and many others. Yan Hanshuo looked at them carefully, thinking about what he should choose. For a moment, he even wondered if he should still pick a lightsaber-type weapon like before. Lightsaber types were excellent for offense. They had a wide attack range and decent damage output. But if he wanted something suitable for assassination or quick kills, a short blade would be more practical. He was about to choose the short blade. But when he looked at it again, he felt something was lacking. It was simply too short. It did not feel powerful or domineering enough. With a swipe of his hand, he pushed the option aside and looked at the others. His eyes stopped on the greatsword. Compared to a lightsaber, the greatsword's attack range might be slightly smaller. However, when it came to powerful strikes and slashing speed, it was far superior. It was a weapon that focused purely on overwhelming strength. Without hesitation, he made his choice. Another notification appeared. Greatsword type selected. Issuing weapon to host. B rank Greatsword Steel Radiance Extinction. The system also mentioned that follow-up missions would be assigned to the host in order to obtain higher-tier weapons in the future. A sword slowly materialized in front of Yan Hanshuo. The blade shined with a faint metallic glow, as if it carried both hope and destructive power at the same time. He reached forward and grabbed the weapon. The moment his hand touched the hilt, he immediately felt a powerful energy flowing through it. This weapon was extraordinary. What shocked him even more was the fact that the system truly worked. Even though he was only a C-rank hunter, he was holding a B-rank weapon without any restriction. Normally, this would have been completely impossible. But now it was happening right in front of him. With this weapon in his hands, everything was different. Even though his physical strength was still far from the peak, he now had a chance. a chance to take back everything that had been stolen from him. This was his opportunity for revenge. Back outside the dungeon, many reporters had already gathered near the vortex entrance, waiting to cover whatever happened inside. Cameras were ready. Everyone was watching the dungeon exit carefully. Suddenly, one reporter shouted that there was movement at the exit. There seemed to be a reaction near the vortex, which meant the team might be coming out. Moments later, members of the Divine Rhinoceros Corps began walking out of the dungeon one by one. The reporters immediately rushed forward to greet them. But when they saw the team's condition, they were shocked. They all looked exhausted. Their clothes were messy, their bodies covered in fake bandages, and their faces were full of fatigue as if they had just experienced a brutal battle. The reporters quickly began asking questions, wondering whether the Divine Rhinoceros Corps had finally conquered the Isle of Sighs dungeon. What no one knew was that the entire scene was nothing more than an act. Just as Yanxi was about to speak, the reporters interrupted him and immediately asked about Captain Yan Hanshuo. They wondered where he was. Could it be that only the captain had met with misfortune? The team continued their performance like professional actors. Yanxi lowered his head and bowed apologetically to the public, pretending to feel deep regret. He apologized for the failure. He explained that the colossal statue monster was far too fast and that its shell was completely indestructible. According to him, the team had absolutely no power to resist such a terrifying enemy. But he added something else. He claimed that the most direct cause of the mission's failure actually came from their own captain. The crowd immediately reacted with shock. People could not believe what they were hearing. Yanxi continued accusing Yan Hanshuo, saying that perhaps their captain had become too confident in his own strength. He claimed that the captain kept charging forward recklessly again and again, pushing the entire team into danger. According to him, the team had tried to stop their captain many times, but he refused to listen. The other team members also played along, acting as if everything Yanxi said was completely true. Yanxi continued explaining that in the end, the captain had gone too deep into the inner sanctum of the enemy's territory and never made it out alive. The news shocked everyone listening. The red-haired man suddenly jumped in as well, pretending to wipe tears from his eyes. He blamed himself, saying that if his execution threshold had been higher, maybe he could have killed a few more monsters and saved their captain. What the public did not know was that the team had already taken all of Yan Hanshuo's equipment for themselves. The crowd's reactions were mixed. Some people were confused and asked how something like that could happen. Others felt sad, thinking it was a tragic situation caused by the captain's stubbornness. Some even believed that the captain might have been cursed inside the dungeon, which was why everything went wrong. Samo then joined the conversation. She acted shy and gentle again, just like a modest nun. She told the public that she could understand the captain, that maybe he only wanted to prove his strength. Maybe he wanted to show that he alone was the strongest member of the team. But before she could finish her sentence, Yanxi suddenly cut her off. He loudly said that it was enough and that they should stop saying meaningless things. He claimed that he did not want their captain's name to be stained any further, even after his death. Behind him, Samo secretly turned away and made a playful face, revealing that everything she said earlier was only part of the act. Yanxi continued speaking. He claimed that when the captain realized he could not escape, he threw all of his equipment toward them at the final moment. According to Yanxi, the captain told them to preserve those items and keep the flame alive. Then Yanxi pulled out the captain's sword, the very weapon he had taken from Yan Hanshuo. The crowd was completely convinced by the performance. Some people began criticizing the captain, calling him hypocritical for caring about his reputation even at the very end. Others said that if it were not for the captain's reckless behavior, the boss monster might have already been defeated. Some people even complained that the captain loved the spotlight too much. If he wanted glory so badly, he should have challenged the dungeon alone instead of dragging everyone else into danger. Yanxi secretly smiled. He announced that he would never give up. From that day forward, he would carry the captain's sword and challenge the Isle of Sighs again. He claimed that he would return stronger and personally avenge the fallen captain. The crowd began cheering loudly for the team. Many people shouted that they believed in them and that they would surely conquer the Abyss of Sighs someday. Others cheered and encouraged them to lead humanity in driving out the monsters completely. Expel the beasts, the crowd kept shouting and cheering. The Divine Rhinoceros Corps, led by Yanxi, turned around and smiled confidently as they received the praise. Their smiles were full of deception. In their minds, it was now their turn to shine. As they walked further away, they casually removed their fake bandages. Meanwhile, the area outside the vortex slowly became quiet again. Once the crowd had dispersed, a figure finally stepped out of the dungeon. It was the young captain, Yan Hanshuo. His expression was full of anger and frustration. He could not believe what he had just witnessed. He called them shameless and ridiculous. He never imagined that his former teammates would go this far, acting so convincingly in front of the public. He still remembered clearly how they handed him the potions and stood there watching as he drank every single one of them. The memory made his anger burn even stronger, but one question still bothered him. Why? Was it really all for his SSS grade equipment? He gritted his teeth in anger. No matter what the reason was, their behavior was completely insane. False faces, smug expressions, and now they were even trying to destroy his reputation. Yan Hanshuo clenched his fist tightly. He made a silent promise to himself. One day he would tear off their disguises with his own hands, and when that day came, he would cut them all down. Not a single one would be left. At night, inside a quiet apartment, the sound of running water fills the bathroom. The faucet is on and several hair dye bottles are placed on the sink. Yan Hanshuo stands in front of the mirror. His hair is still wet, and steam from the hot shower fills the room. It looks like he has just finished bathing. He slowly dries his hair with a towel while looking at his reflection. Luckily, there was still some money left in the clothes he wore earlier. Otherwise, he might have ended up sleeping outside tonight. After dyeing his hair black and with his body now looking smaller and younger, it would be much harder for people to recognize him. Once he calmed down, his thoughts also started to change a little. Revenge was something that would definitely happen. But right now, there was something else that bothered him more. Why did they betray him? He stared at himself in the mirror again. Even though his body looked younger now, it was still strong and well-built. The biggest change was his hair color. With black hair and a younger appearance, he already looked like a completely different person. Still, he could not understand the betrayal. Excuses like brainwashing or being controlled by someone simply did not make sense to him. So what was the real reason? Was it really just because of his SSS grade equipment? The question kept coming back to his mind again and again. No matter how much he tried to ignore it, it still bothered him. Just then, the television in the living room started broadcasting the news. The reporter announced that the Shenwei Corps, a team known for being almost unbeatable in recent years, had been defeated inside the SSS grade dungeon called the Source of Size. The news also reported that their captain, Yan Hanshuo, had died after going too deep into the enemy's territory. Yan Hanshuo finished putting on his shirt while listening to the report. Everything they were saying on TV was completely wrong. It was all a lie. Then the news changed topics. The reporter announced that tomorrow would be the new high school freshman selection tournament. The reporter even added that years ago, Yan Hanshuo himself was one of the top participants in the very first selection tournament. Hearing that made Yan Hanshuo pause. The high school selection tournament. Maybe the answers he was looking for were connected to it. After all, the Shenwei Corps had worked with several schools before. And even though he now had the no-level system, revenge was still a long journey. It would take time. Thinking about that made him realize something else. First, he needed a new identity. Even though his body had become younger, his potential should still be at the SSS grade level, and the high school selection tournament cared more about potential than current strength. If he could use that to get close to powerful people, maybe he could find some clues. His thoughts were interrupted again by the reporter on TV. Tomorrow's freshman selection tournament was about to begin, and the reporter wondered if another genius would appear this year. Yan Hanshuo stared at the television quietly. It looked like he was already planning his next move. A smirk appeared on his face. Was he really going to experience student life again? He walked to the window and looked outside. If he was really going to live as a student again, there was only one thing left to do. He needed a new identity. Later that night, on the streets, Yan Hanshuo walked through dark alleys with his hoodie covering his head. This place was known as a lawless area. Many people said that all kinds of illegal activities happened here. One of those activities was making fake identity cards. The place looked exactly like a scene from a crime movie. Dim lights, old buildings, suspicious people everywhere. As Yan Hanshuo walked past, several people stared at him, trying to figure out who he was. Maybe it was because he looked new in the area. Finally, he arrived at the place he was looking for. He knocked on the door. A large man with a lip piercing opened it and asked who would knock at this hour. Yan Hanshuo calmly asked if they could make a fake identity card for him. He also said that he had money. The man immediately noticed that Yan looked very young. A smirk appeared on his face. To him, that meant many possibilities. Maybe the kid was hiding from something. Maybe he was an orphan that no one would look for. While they were talking, several other men slowly gathered around them. They quietly surrounded Yan Hanshuo, like they were waiting for him to do something wrong. It looked like they were guarding the place. Yan Hanshuo noticed them, but stayed calm and just simply gave them a cold look. One blonde man holding a baseball bat laughed and said that normally they were the ones who kidnapped people, but now a kid had the courage to walk straight into their place. Another man joined the conversation and joked that although boys did not sell for as much as girls, his organs could still make good money. Yan Hanshuo frowned slightly. From what he heard before, this place only handled small illegal jobs like fake documents. He did not expect things like human trafficking or organ selling. Still, he stayed calm and tried not to show too much emotion. Then the man suddenly swung his bat. He charged forward and mockingly told him to behave. He even joked that they would give him anesthesia later. But before it could hit, Yan Hanshuo moved. He jumped forward and delivered a powerful flying kick. The kick hit the blonde man so hard that he was sent flying backward. Blood came out of his mouth as he crashed into the wall. Everyone froze in shock. One of them said in surprise that skill is for a D-rank challenger. Yan Hanshuo let out a quiet sigh. Surely this day couldn't get much worse. Yan Hanshuo activated the no-level system. His weapon appeared instantly. The men were shocked again. None of them saw where the weapon came from. A weapon with effects like that should at least be B-rank. How could someone this young have something like that? First, he was betrayed by his own team, and now he ran into criminals doing terrible things when all he wanted was a simple ID. Yan Hanshuo felt tired of all this trouble. His sword grew larger as it fully appeared, and he casually rested it on his shoulder. A notification appeared, successfully equipped cross-level B-rank weapon. Steel Radiant Blade. Somewhere else in the city. Inside, a fancy loft. This was where the traitors were staying. Samo carefully checked the room for hidden microphones or traps, but she found nothing. The red-haired man sat comfortably on a sofa and asked what their next plan would be. Yan Shi stood in front of a mirror, fixing his clothes. He said that the school leaders had just contacted him. They hoped their team would participate in tomorrow's high school selection tournament. Now that Yan Hanshuo was believed to be dead, the school urgently needed someone to raise people's morale. The rest of the team quietly listened. Yan Shi said that when the time came, they only needed to control their expressions and let him handle the rest. The man with the snake suddenly asked something. The tournament was tomorrow, yet Yan Shi was already dressed very nicely, like he was going somewhere special. This made him pause. Yan Shi just looked at them and casually said that he had a date. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a photo sits on a table. In the picture are Yan Hanshuo and a beautiful woman. Inside her living room, the woman watches the news on TV. The report repeats the same story. According to the Shenwei Corps members, Captain Yan Hanshuo died inside the SSS grade dungeon called the Abyss of Sighs. The woman's name is Yue Lingting, and she is Yan Hanshuo's fiancée. As she hears the news, tears slowly fall from her eyes. She can hardly believe that the man she loves is gone. Her hands tremble as she holds the picture frame. Her shoulders shake as she struggles to accept what she just heard. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door. Yue Lingting freezes. For a moment, a small spark of hope appears in her eyes. Could it be him? Could Hanshuo still be alive? She quickly runs to the door, her heart beating fast. She calls out his name, hoping to see the person she loves standing there. But the person who walks in is not Yan Hanshuo. It is Yan Shi. Yue Lingting's expression immediately changes to surprise. She looks at him in confusion and asks why he has the keys to her house. Yan Shi calmly explains that the key was given to him by her parents. According to him, her parents were worried that she would be too heartbroken after hearing the news, so they asked him to check on her. Yue Lingting sighs and tells him not to worry about her. She says she just wants to be alone for a while and asks him to leave. But Yan Shi does not move. As if he did not even hear her words, he suddenly steps closer and hugs her from behind. At the same time, he takes the picture frame from her hands. He casually says that she should stop wasting her time thinking about Yan Hanshuo. According to him, Hanshuo was never someone worth trusting her life to. Yan Shi continues speaking, saying that during the dungeon mission, Hanshuo repeatedly ignored the safety of his teammates and kept putting everyone in danger. He claims that Hanshuo was nothing more than a selfish man who only cared about himself. Hearing those words makes Yue Lingting furious. She immediately grabs the picture frame back from his hands. She firmly says that it is impossible and that she does not believe a single word he just said. In her eyes, Yan Hanshuo has never been that kind of person. He would never betray his teammates or act selfishly. To her, Hanshuo has always been someone who faces every challenge without fear. someone who keeps moving forward no matter how difficult the situation is. Meanwhile, back in the dark, alley rain has started to fall. Yan Hanshuo stands calmly with his greatsword. He looks at the group of men surrounding him and casually tells them to come at him together. He says he is in a hurry and does not have time to deal with them one by one. His words immediately anger the men. One of them rushes forward, shouting that Yan Hanshuo will pay for his arrogance. Another man laughs and says that even if the kid has a B-rank weapon, he can still beat him senseless. Several men charge at him at the same time. Their weapons swing through the air as they try to attack from different directions. Yan Hanshuo calmly watches them approach. In his mind, he quickly analyzes the situation. A lightsaber and a heavy slashing blade may be different weapon types, but that does not mean the combat skills he learned before are useless. Skill is still skill, and experience cannot be erased. As the enemy's weapons are about to reach him, Yan Hanshuo moves. He draws his greatsword in one smooth motion. A notification appears. About to unleash maximum range draw blade slash. Skill level, B rank. The blade cuts through the rain-filled air in a wide, powerful arc. The attack hits instantly. Several men are thrown backward as if they were hit by an invisible wall. Some of their weapons snap in half as the blade passes through them. Others are struck directly. Within seconds, the alley becomes quiet. The men who charged at him earlier are now lying on the ground, groaning in pain as rain continues to fall over them. Yan Hanshuo stands there calmly, his sword still in hand. One of the defeated men struggles to lift his head and asks who he really is. Yan Hanshuo simply replies that he is just someone who does not want to let anyone down. Even in a fight, his answer sounds strangely dramatic. Just then, the big man with the lip piercing opens the door again. He looks outside and immediately finds several men lying on the ground, all beaten up by the same kid. Yan Hanshuo walks toward the door and places his hand against it, stopping the man from closing it. He looks at him coldly and asks if he is now willing to make an ID card. Back at Yue Lingting's house. The argument between her and Yanxi continues. Yue Lingting firmly says that she knows better than anyone what kind of person Hanshuo really is. And besides, Yanxi has no right to interfere in her life. When Yanxi tries to grab her arm, she immediately slaps his hand away. But Yanxi only responds with a small grin. He says that actually, he does have the right, because her parents have already agreed to his proposal. He calmly tells her that their wedding will take place as planned, 1 month from now. Yue Lingting freezes. The news shocks her completely. She cannot understand what is happening. Why would she suddenly be getting married to this person? Back in the alley. The man with the lip piercing finally hands Yan Hanshuo a fake ID card. Politely. Yan Hanshuo asks how much he needs to pay, but the man quickly shakes his head and refuses the money. He even calls Yan Hanshuo Big Brother, trying to sound friendly. He explains that the things they said earlier about kidnapping boys and girls were only meant to scare people. It was just an act, so Yan Hanshuo should not take it seriously. Yan Hanshuo calmly says that he already knew that. The man quickly nods in agreement, although it is clear he is simply afraid of Yan Hanshuo. Yan Hanshuo then adds that crimes like child trafficking are not something a group of D-rank challengers would dare to do. Even if they had 100 times more courage, they still would not dare. Which means there must be someone powerful supporting them from behind. A bigger boss. Hearing this makes the man with the piercing start sweating nervously. He suddenly becomes worried about what this strange kid might do next. Yan Hanshuo calmly says that he does not expect someone like him to know who the real boss is. But even so, punishment still needs to be given. Without warning, Yan Hanshuo lifts his weapon and aimed at the man hard. The poor guy is sent rolling across the street. It is a bit funny in a way. Yan Hanshuo already got his fake ID, and only after that did he decide to beat the man up. The man ends up lying on the ground outside with bruises all over his body. By the time everything is over, the sky has already started to brighten. Yan Hanshuo looks up and notices the sun slowly rising. Come to think of it, this is the first morning he has seen since his body became younger again. He takes out the fake ID card and looks at it carefully. It shows the name of his new identity. From this moment on, Yan Hanshuo will live under a new name, Xiao Wujin. The sun shines brightly at noon. Today is the day of the high school selection tournament. Students are lined up outside the grandstand, forming a very long queue. Teachers and staff move around the area as they prepare everything for the event. Some students standing in line are already wiping the sweat from their faces. The heat is intense and the line barely moves. One of them starts complaining that the registration process is taking way too long and that it feels like they will be stuck there forever. Another student says that Yan Hanshuo's death has actually ignited a fire in everyone's heart. Because of that, many students now believe they might become the next Yan Hanshuo. The competition today feels much more intense. Some students nearby are even more excited. One of them confidently claims that Yan Hanshuo appeared in his dream last night, almost like he came to encourage him. A few others nod seriously, as if they believe it. Their words show just how much the legendary hero has inspired them. What they do not realize is that the real Yan Hanshuo is already there at the event. At the moment, our MC is casually sitting on one of the benches nearby. Because of the strong heat, he slowly drinks from a bottle while watching the crowd around him. Students keep walking past him without even noticing him. Of course, they do not recognize who he really is. Hanshuo quietly thinks to himself that it was a good decision to come very early in the morning to sign up. Because of that, he did not have to stand in the long line outside. However, another problem is bothering him. He barely has any money left in his pocket. Even if he somehow tests as an SSS rank today, it does not mean he will immediately receive any cash or reward. That means his current financial situation will not improve anytime soon. At this rate, he is honestly worried that he might end up sleeping on the streets tonight. While he sits there quietly eating his simple lunch, a group of students walks past him. They are talking loudly, and the conversation soon turns to Yan Hanshuo. Their assumed leader scoffs and calls Yan Hanshuo a clown who only cares about showing off. According to him, Hanshuo just liked acting cool in front of everyone. The leader continues complaining that even the news keeps saying they hope another Yan Hanshuo will appear in this competition. He sarcastically says that as if not enough people have already died. One of his friends, a bigger student, immediately agrees with him. They have no idea that the actual Yan Hanshuo is sitting just a few steps away from them while quietly eating. The group continues talking. One of them says Hanshuo only seemed strong because of his equipment. If they had the same complete set of gear, they could also destroy heaven and earth. Another student points out that someone would still need SSS, rank potential, and strength to use that equipment properly. But one of the others immediately tells him to stop defending someone who betrayed his teammates. Because of the lies spread by Yan Shi and his group, the public now truly believes that story. The big student laughs and adds another insult. He wonders if that naive white-haired guy actually believed he was some kind of savior. In his opinion, Yan Hanshuo simply had a case of chunibyo, probably a main character syndrome. The whole group bursts into laughter. At that moment, another student suddenly steps forward. He is a blonde boy wearing large glasses. Although he looks nervous, his face shows clear anger as he tells them to stop slandering Yan Hanshuo. Hanshuo hears this and lifts his head slightly, paying attention. The blonde boy continues defending him. He says that before Yan Hanshuo appeared, humans were constantly retreating in defeat against high-level fierce beasts. Cities lived in fear of the space-time gates opening at any moment. According to him, it was Yan Hanshuo's appearance that changed all of that. Several nearby students pause and listen to his words. The bully leader becomes irritated. He curses and calls the blonde boy a bastard. Clearly, he's annoyed that someone dared to challenge him. The bully then smirks and starts speaking in a mocking tone. He sarcastically says that, of course, Yan Hanshuo is humanity's great hero. He continues by questioning why most of the Divine Rhino Corps' SSS rank equipment ended up in Hanshuo's hands alone. He also questions why Hanshuo often went deep into dangerous areas without caring about the safety of his teammates. According to him, it was simply because Hanshuo believed he was too strong. Another student jumps in and says that in the end, Hanshuo is just a villain who leeched off the team. Someone else adds that society should abandon this idea of individual heroism. The blonde boy begins to feel uneasy. From the looks of things, he might be the only person defending Yan Hanshuo here. The crowd around them even seems to be getting angry at the topic. The bully leader suddenly narrows his eyes at the blonde boy. He says that he remembers him. The boy is Ying Kaijun, the son of the famous SS rank hunter Ying Wuwei. Then the bully laughs cruelly. He says it is really unfortunate that such a powerful father gave birth to an F-rank piece of trash. Before Kaijun can react, the bully suddenly kicks him hard. The bully sneers and says he will teach Kaijun a lesson, so he will stop dreaming about becoming a hero. The force sends Kaijun crashing to the ground. Some students nearby even agree and say Kaijun deserved it for speaking up. Hanshuo watches quietly. Seeing another student being beaten like this bothers him. But at the same time, he cannot act carelessly. If his identity is exposed now, it will create too many problems, especially when he is currently trying to stay low-key while being completely broke. Meanwhile, the bully keeps talking. He says he does not care if Kaijun's father is an SS rank hunter or if his family is wealthy. None of that changes the fact that Kaijun himself is just an F rank. Kaijun slowly pushes himself up from the ground. He admits that maybe he really is just an F rank piece of trash, but that still does not give them the right to insult Yan Hanshuo. Kaijun summons his weapon with determination. It turns out to be nothing more than a wooden club. He grips it tightly and prepares to fight. No matter what happens, he refuses to allow them to insult the hero he admires the most. The bully leader laughs loudly and summons his own weapon. A silver axe appears in his hand. It is a D rank weapon. The difference between them is obvious. The bully becomes even more excited. If Kaijun wants to fight using a cheap F rank weapon, then he will gladly wake him up from that foolish dream today. Students around them gasp in surprise. There is actually a D rank challenger among them. Although D rank is not rare among adults, reaching that level at only 15 years old is quite uncommon. The bully prepares to strike Kaijun. Just as he swings, something suddenly slams into him. He was kicked hard. Kaijun freezes in shock because he knows he did not hit him yet. It was Hansho, or Wujin. Kaijun stares at him in disbelief. The movement happened so fast that he barely saw it. For some reason, the moment he sees Wujin, he is strangely reminded of Yan Hansho. Wujin calmly tells Kaijun to understand something first, that he did not step in because Kaijun came from a rich family. For a brief moment, Kaijun almost thinks the person in front of him is actually Yan Hanshuo himself. Of course, he has no idea that the truth is not far from that thought. The bully's friends quickly rush to help him stand up. The leader becomes furious that someone dared to attack him. Without hesitation, he picks up his axe and throws it directly at Wujin. Students nearby panic and start moving away. Wujin reacts instantly. He grabs Kaijun's wooden club and kicked it forward. The wooden club collides with the flying axe in midair. The club immediately shatters into pieces, but the axe is knocked away from its path. At least no one gets injured. Wujin calmly tells Kaijun that a low-level weapon is not always incapable of stopping a stronger weapon. Having courage is a good thing. Kaijun, however, looks terrified because that wooden club was his only weapon, and now it is completely destroyed. Wujin continues speaking. Charging forward without thinking is not exactly a wise move. Then he slowly turns toward the group of bullies and says that he has a few words for them. His calm tone alone makes them uneasy. Wujin walks over and picks up the bully's axe from the ground. He says that in this world, challengers are not superior to everyone else. Civilians and people at the bottom are not weak or inferior. On the contrary, he continued, they are the foundation that supports society. Our MC held the bully's weapon easily. The students watching are shocked. Wujin just picked up a D-rank weapon like it was nothing. There is no way another D-rank challenger their age is standing right in front of them. Some students start wondering if the competition this year is really that intense. Wujin continues speaking setting. Aside the Yan Hanshuo issue for now, he says that using the status of a high-level challenger to bully others is something he cannot tolerate. He raises the axe and prepares to swing it toward the bully, but before he can move, a hand suddenly grabs his wrist. A blue-haired man calmly tells them to stop. That responding to violence with more violence is not exactly something honorable. Wujin is slightly surprised because someone actually managed to stop him. The blue-haired man continues explaining that teaching the bully a lesson is already enough. If they keep fighting, it will only increase the chance of retaliation later. This man is an S-rank challenger, Instructor Qing Gangchui. Gangchui notices that Wujin was able to lift a D-rank weapon easily. That alone shows that the boy has some potential. Curious, he asks for Wujin's name. My name is Yan Han. For a brief second, Wujin almost reveals his real identity, but he quickly corrects himself and introduces himself as Xiao Wujin. Gangchui releases his hand and says that he will remember that name. He also mentions that he will keep an eye on Wujin during the selection later. Wujin simply looks at him for a moment as the instructor walks away, thinking that he needs to calm down before he accidentally exposes himself. He quietly thinks to himself that life really is unpredictable. He never expected the day would come when he would personally stop a fight between students like this. Looking around at the noisy crowd of teenagers, Gangchui sighs to himself. There are far too many troublesome brats gathered here today. It is clearly going to be a very busy day for him. The potential assessment conference finally begins. The atmosphere inside the massive arena becomes extremely intense as thousands of students have gathered in the huge venue, each one hoping to prove that they are different from the rest. For many of them, this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. It is a make-or-break situation where they will find out if they truly have talent or if they are just another ordinary challenger in the crowd. The announcer's voice echoes through the arena as he informs everyone that all students have finished registering. This year's freshman competition has broken the previous record, with a total of 4,338 students participating. The crowd reacts with excitement after hearing that number. The announcer continues, explaining that for the sake of fairness, the order of the potential assessments will follow the alphabetical order of the students' surnames. When Woojin hears this, he pauses for a moment. His surname Xiao starts with the letter X, which means his turn will be placed far near the end. Kaijun quickly realizes the same thing about his own situation. His surname, Wang, starts with W, which is not much better than Woojin's position in the order. The announcer then says that before the official potential assessments begin, they have invited several important guests to help energize the atmosphere. At that moment, a man politely excuses himself as he walks past Woojin and Kaijun. The two step aside slightly to give him space. As Woojin moves, he catches sight of several familiar faces in the distance. The announcer then reveals the special guests. They are members of the Divine Rhino Corps. The moment the elite team appears, the students in the arena erupt into loud cheers. One student whispers to his friend that the Divine Rhino Corps had just suffered a crushing defeat inside a dungeon recently, yet they were still dragged here to act like cheerleaders. The student cannot help but feel that it is a little miserable. The Divine Rhino Corps walks forward confidently, their presence as imposing as ever. None of them realize that they have just passed by the very person they betrayed, Yan Hanshuo. Kaijun quietly comments that the aura coming from the Corps is truly terrifying. After all, they are one of the top-tier teams. Woojin's expression changed. The members of the Divine Rhino Corps walk onto the stage. Seeing those people appear here makes his thoughts turn cold. He cannot help wondering why these betraying individuals came to this event. Perhaps they are here to take another opportunity to insult Yan Hanshuo in front of everyone. However, he quickly suppresses those thoughts. Yanxi steps forward and begins addressing the students. He introduces himself as the acting captain of the Divine Rhino Corps and says that he is very glad to meet everyone at the event. He continues by mentioning that many students have probably already heard about the incident that happened a few days ago. According to him, the Corps suffered serious damage because of various actions taken by their captain. The entire Corps stands neatly behind him, lined up as if they are waiting for their own chance to speak. It almost feels like a carefully prepared performance. Yanxi continues speaking. He says that despite everything that happened, he still hopes everyone can treat Captain Yan Hanshuo as their role model. He explains that he does not expect people to be overly tolerant toward their deceased captain, but he wants to remind everyone that no one in this world is perfect. A person should not be completely denied because of a single mistake. On the outside, Woojin's face remains calm, but inside, anger slowly builds. Kaijun quietly comments that Yanxi's words seem to have some hidden meaning behind them. Yanxi continues his speech, saying that the captain was not the true reason for the dungeon failure, nor was he an arrogant and reckless person. According to him, Yan Hanshuo was a hero of humanity and a pioneer who fought against fierce beasts. The speech sounds noble, but the hypocrisy behind it is obvious. Still, some students in the audience begin believing Yanxi's words. One student comments that even after being implicated by their captain, Yanxi still refuses to blame him. Another student has the opposite reaction. The more Yanxi speaks like this, the more that student feels that Yan Hanshuo must have been a terrible person to drag such loyal teammates into danger. Yanxi continues speaking. He says that he will carefully watch everyone's performance today. Among this crowd, he hopes someone will emerge whose strength surpasses that of their former captain and eventually lead humanity to completely defeat the fierce beasts. After finishing his speech, he hands the microphone back to the announcer. The announcer then declares that the assessment competition officially begins. The students immediately burst into cheers. Some shout that they will definitely test as S-rank potential. Others shout that they want to become the person who surpasses and crushes Yan Hanshuo. Soon, the students begin lining up in front of the potential detection machines. Each student only needs to place their hand on the scanner. The machine will instantly detect both their potential rank and their current level. One student after another steps forward. Some are detected with E-rank potential while currently being F-rank challengers. Others have slightly better current levels but weaker potential. Many end up remaining in the lowest ranks. As more students finish their tests, disappointment begins spreading through the crowd. Kaijun notices that nearly 100 students have already been tested, and almost all of them fall within E-rank or F-rank. It becomes clear that cheering loudly beforehand does not magically increase someone's potential. Kaijun quietly hopes that at the very least, he might be detected as D rank. Woojin then casually mentions something from the past, in his time. Or in the past, rather, potential could be detected when children were only 4 or 5 years old. He wonders why people now only test potential when they reach 15. Kaijun looks slightly surprised by the comment. He replies that such a practice was from a very long time ago. He explains that in the current era, potential is extremely important. Not only do society and schools value it, but parents care about it just as much. However, high potential children are very rare. In the past, when parents discovered that their child had low potential at a young age, many of them simply could not accept it. Some would even abandon those children. At that time, the streets were filled with babies who had been abandoned because they were considered low potential. To prevent that tragedy from repeating itself, the government eventually made a new rule. Children can only take their first potential test when they reach 15 years old. Woojin finally understands the reasoning and nods quietly. Soon, another student steps up to the detection machine. The moment he places his hand on the scanner, the result appears. His potential rank is detected as C rank, while his current level is E rank. Many students react with surprise. Finally, a C rank challenger has appeared among them. The student himself looks extremely proud. He even starts thinking that several high schools will probably compete to recruit him. However, his smug expression quickly disappears. An event official suddenly approaches him and calmly asks if he really thinks he passed the test. The student becomes confused. The official then announces that the student has violated the competition rules and is immediately disqualified. The student cannot believe what he is hearing. The official explains that the student attempted to cheat. Did you really think he could muddle through? Furious, he explained that the competition recently switched to the newest model of detection machine. The device not only detects potential and strength, but can also analyze the challenger's biological age. According to the machine's analysis, the student is not 15 years old. His real age is 19. The announcement shocks many students in the arena. Although the student has C-rank potential, being only E-rank at 19 years old is actually considered quite weak. Kaijun is amazed that the detector is powerful enough to reveal a challenger's age. Woojin, however, suddenly feels uneasy. If the machine can detect age, then there is a serious problem. Technically, he should be detected as 32 years old. Meanwhile, the disqualified student is escorted away from the arena and placed on the high school blacklist. Woojin quietly thinks to himself that this situation is not good. The Divine Rhino Corps is present here as well. If his identity is exposed, everything could become extremely dangerous. No matter what happens, he cannot allow that risk. As he stands there, he starts thinking quickly, already trying to figure out possible ways to avoid being exposed. Kaijun notices that Woojin seems to be deep in thought. From his expression, it almost looks like he might be considering leaving. Kaijun asks if he plans to withdraw from the competition. Woojin does not answer immediately. He is still thinking, trying to come up with another solution. Just then, the group of bullies they fought earlier suddenly bumps into them again. The bully leader notices their expressions and immediately starts teasing Woojin. He says that it looks like they are preparing to retreat and asks if they have already given up on participating. One of the officials noticed the commotion and immediately gave the instructor a heads up. One of them jokingly asks if Woojin might also be lying about his age, like some 20-year-old D-rank challenger pretending to be a young student. The other student from the group adds that even earlier, Woojin's aura did not feel like that of a normal student. The comment irritates Woojin. Unfortunately, the bully is not entirely wrong. Woojin really is hiding behind a younger appearance, but no matter how annoyed he feels, he cannot afford to expose himself. Kaijun begins to feel nervous as well. For a moment, he wonders if Woojin might actually end up like the disqualified student. Now that suspicion has been raised, the situation suddenly becomes much more dangerous. Faced with this growing suspicion, Woojin must quickly decide what to do next. Kaijun begins to suspect that Woojin might be similar to the student who was just disqualified for hiding his real age. The thought crosses his mind because Woojin has been acting strangely ever since the detector revealed it could analyze a person's age. However, Woojin does not react at all. He cannot allow his disguise to be exposed, so he simply turns and continues walking away as if none of the accusations matter. The moment he starts moving, the bully leader immediately calls out to him. He loudly asks what Woojin is doing and mocks him for trying to run away. The bully then says with a wide grin that attempted murder, and murder carry the same charge and the same sin. The way he says it sounds like he is deliberately provoking Woojin, hoping to see him lose control. He continues mocking him, saying that Wu Jin cannot possibly think he can just walk away from this situation so easily. In the bully's eyes, that would be far too naive. Wu Jin keeps walking forward, doing his best to ignore them. Compared to the bigger problems he is dealing with, this kind of petty conflict means nothing. His current mission is far more important than wasting time fighting with these people. However, the surrounding students have already started joining the teasing. Some begin making indirect comments, loudly saying that situations like this are a good example of killing a chicken to scare the monkeys. If people pretending to be younger students see what happens, they will think twice before trying the same trick again. Another student agrees and says that whether Wu Jin goes on stage or not, he should still be punished. Someone else comments that pretending to be a genius youth is truly shameless. They question whether Wu Jin is even worthy of such an act. Another student adds that he almost got fooled by Wu Jin earlier. Hearing all these remarks makes Kaijun feel more confused about the person he just met. He does not know whether to believe the accusations or not. At that moment, two event officials walk toward Wu Jin. They calmly tell him that he needs to cooperate with them by registering his name and information. They explain that his actions will be handled according to the rules and the law. Wu Jin lets out a long sigh. It is definitely not a sigh of relief. In his mind, it seems like he now has only one option left. The bully leader laughs and says that Wu Jin never had a choice to begin with. But Wu Jin remains calm. He simply says that he will go to the stage and take the test. The surrounding students cannot believe what they just heard. Aside from the accusations about hiding his age, going on stage now would only make the humiliation worse if the detector exposed him. However, Wu Jin never actually admitted to faking his age in the first place. He only said that he wants to take the test. With that, he calmly walks toward the stage while the officials follow behind him. The bully leader watches him with a confused expression, wondering what exactly is going on inside that guy's head. Near the front of the crowd, the members of the Divine Rhino Corps are also observing the ongoing assessments. They notice the commotion happening near the line. One member seems curious about it, but the man with the snake simply tells him that it is no longer their concern. Meanwhile, Wu Jin walks up onto the stage. Everyone in the arena turns their attention toward him, waiting for the detector to reveal the result. While standing in front of the machine, Wu Jin carefully thinks about the method the detector might be using to determine a person's age. He studies the device closely before placing his hand on it. Detecting a person's exact age is not a simple task. Yet this machine does not collect blood, saliva, or fingerprints. Without those biological samples, accurately measuring age would be extremely difficult. That leaves only a few possible explanations. One possibility is that the student who was caught earlier was actually part of a staged act. Perhaps the organizers arranged it to scare away anyone who might try to cheat. The entire scene could have been a performance designed to make students who were hiding their age leave voluntarily. As for the other possibility, Wu Jin places his hand on the detector. The entire arena watches in silence. Small Wiener locked his gaze on our MC. Even the members of the Divine Rhino Corps turn their attention toward him. A moment later, the machine displays the result. His current age is detected as 15 years old. Kaijin immediately celebrates in relief, while the crowd reacts with mixed emotions of shock, surprise, and disbelief. Wu Jin himself is not surprised at all. Among Challenger Corps, there exists a lesser-known profession called an inspector. Inspectors have the ability to analyze fierce beasts and detect their level, age, and various physical conditions. The closer they are to the target, the more accurate the results become. The detector on stage is likely just a cover. The real detection probably comes from one of the officials standing nearby. Wu Jin was confident he would not be exposed because he suddenly remembered a certain type of potion. This potion can temporarily lower the apparent level and age of a fierce beast. Even inspectors cannot easily detect the true values while the potion is active. The potion used on him might be the same kind. Thinking about this makes him realize that he may have encountered very important information today. At that moment, the detector produces another result. The students waited patiently. The entire arena is shocked to the core students stare at the screen in disbelief. The machine announces that Wu Jin's challenger potential is SSS rank. Many of them cannot believe that someone standing right in front of them possesses SSS rank potential. Some people shout that they almost missed the appearance of a true genius. Small Wiener is completely stunned. He cannot believe that the person he fought earlier is actually an SSS rank talent. Among the Divine Rhino Corps, Yanxi also notices the reaction from the crowd. They look toward the stage and realize that an SSS rank youth has appeared. Samo quietly comments that the boy's aura strangely reminds her of Yan Hanshuo. Meanwhile, Wu Jin's hand remains on the detector. The machine continues scanning, but something unusual happens. It cannot detect his current challenger level. The announcer looks confused as the screen repeatedly fails to display a result. Even Wu Jin feels slightly puzzled. It might be related to the unusual no-level system he possesses. After a moment of hesitation, the announcer explains that they will use a more precise instrument later to examine his current level. For now, he announces to the crowd that they should send off this genius youth with their warmest cheers. The entire arena erupts into loud applause. After Wu Jin steps down from the stage, the testing continues. Another student walks forward and places his hand on the detector. His result shows D rank potential with a current level of E rank. Soon after, the bully leader takes his turn. When he places his hand on the detector, the result reveals A rank potential and a current level of D rank. People in the crowd comment that reaching D rank at 15 years old is impressive and that an A rank potential holder is definitely not ordinary. Another student quietly remarks that it is unfortunate this guy picked a fight with someone far stronger than himself. The testing continues as another student walks onto the stage. This time, it is a girl. While the bullies are still celebrating their leader's result, the girl calmly steps forward to take her test. Many students in the crowd feel that she looks strangely familiar. Someone in the audience suddenly recognizes her. She is said to be Yan Hanshuo's adopted daughter, a girl who was originally an orphan. The girl has long black hair and is wearing a simple school uniform. Seeing her appear here makes Wu Jin feel surprised. Today really seems to be a day full of unexpected encounters. The girl places her hand on the detector. Moments later, the results appear. Her current level is C rank, and her potential is detected as SS rank. The announcer is shocked by the result. He cannot believe that so many high-level talents are appearing today. The crowd reacts with disbelief as well. Some people whisper that if this is really Yan Hanshuo's adopted daughter, it almost feels like Yan Hanshuo himself came back in another form. Others simply lose confidence and jokingly say they might as well go home now. The announcer quickly asks everyone to remain calm and signal security to maintain order before allowing the assessment to continue. Yanqi quietly watches the stage, carefully observing the results of each student. He seems to be waiting to see if more S-rank talents will appear. Another student is tested and receives A-rank potential with a current level of D rank. Soon after, another student appears with S-rank potential and a current level of D rank. Yet another S-rank potential holder. Eventually, it becomes Kaijun's turn. He walks up nervously and places his hand on the detector. The machine reveals that his potential is S-rank, but his current level is only F-rank. Kaijun felt a little embarrassed, to be honest. Having S-rank potential, but still being at the lowest level at 15 years old makes him feel ashamed. Some people describe individuals like that as beautifully packaged trash. As the announcer summarizes the results so far, he informs the crowd that 11 students have achieved A-rank potential or higher, while 4 have reached S-rank potential or above. These 15 students will gain the right to freely choose any high school they want, and will also receive a sponsorship of 300,000. Instructor Qing Gangchui watches from the side with a faint smile, thinking that having 4 students with S-rank potential or above is actually a very good result. Meanwhile, Kaijun stands among the other high-potential students but feels completely out of place, as if he does not belong in the same group as them. The announcer then prepares for the next part of the event. He begins announcing that everyone should welcome Yan Shi, the acting captain of the Divine Rhino Corps, to present the awards. However, before he can finish the sentence, something strange suddenly appears in the sky. A ripple forms in the air, as if space itself is being torn open. Everyone looks up in shock. Moments later, the distortion expands and opens into a portal. From inside the portal, several enormous monsters begin emerging. The potential assessment conference was just about to end perfectly. Yet suddenly, the terrifying aura of an S-rank monster spreads through the arena. No one knows whether this appearance is a coincidence or something far more intentional. One after another, massive demonic dragons pushed their way out of the portal. Their bodies were covered with dark rock-like armor, and their wings spread wide as they roared into the air. Even the instructors were stunned. Qing Gangchui wondered how an S-rank monster could appear here, out of nowhere. Within seconds, panic spread through the arena. People began shouting for everyone to run. Students started screaming as the flying monsters rushed downward from the sky. Wu Jin immediately sensed something strange. The monsters had appeared right after the assessment ended. The timing was too precise. In his mind, he wondered if they had come specifically for this group of high-potential young students gathered in the arena. By now, the entire place had turned into chaos. Students were running in every direction, pushing past each other in desperation. Suddenly, several of the flying monsters were struck mid-air. A spear shot through the sky and slammed directly into one of them. The weapon flashed through the air before instantly returning to its owner's hand. It was instructor Qing Gangchui. He had just used his general skill, weapon return, allowing his spear to fly back into his grip after being thrown. Gangchui tightened his grip on the weapon while watching the dragons circle overhead. He could not help feeling frustrated. His S-rank spear, Scarlet Dragon Golden Scale, had been badly damaged during the dungeon battle a few days ago and was still under repair. Right now, the only weapon he had available was an A-rank spear. A-rank spear, blue crystal shining blade. He immediately turned to the other instructors and challengers nearby and gave orders. They were to deal with the remaining B-rank demonic dragons, while he would focus on the S-rank demonic dragon leading the group. The others quickly agreed and rushed into action. Gangchui kept his eyes locked on the largest dragon. He reminded himself not to rush. If the method was correct, there might still be a chance to defeat an S-rank monster even with an A-rank weapon. However, before he could recall the specific weakness of the demonic dragon, the members of the Divine Rhino Corps suddenly began moving as well. Yanqi gave Samo a quick command, and she immediately understood what he meant. Without hesitation, Samo stood up and pulled out a strange gun hidden inside her clothes. Then she fired it. The weapon did not fire a normal bullet. Instead, a small injection dart shot forward. It was shot directly at Gangchui's neck. Gangchui instantly felt his body weaken. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. He quickly pulled the object from his neck and realized it was an injection device. A powerful drug was already spreading through his body, rapidly suppressing his physical functions. The shot had clearly come from behind. As his strength faded, a realization hit him. This attack had been planned from the very beginning. Meanwhile, the dragons began attacking the arena. They opened their massive jaws and unleashed streams of blazing fire toward the ground. Flames exploded across the arena as people ran desperately for their lives. One of the officials shouted that the demonic dragon's fire attacks were far too powerful. Another official pointed out the problem with aerial combat. They had very few archers available, which meant they could barely fight back against flying enemies. Amid all the chaos, Gangchui noticed something strange. Wujin was still standing nearby. He was not running. Gangchui tried to warn him that it was too dangerous to stay here and that he needed to leave immediately. But instead of running, Wujin bent down and picked up the spear lying beside him. Gangchui froze. Wujin had just lifted the A-rank spear. At the same time, the no-level system inside Wujin started activating again. Wujin calmly looked at the weapon in his hand. He told the instructor that he might have slightly forgotten how to use a spear. Then, the no-level system had just finished activating. Gangchui was stunned. Just lifting an A-rank weapon was already something most challengers could not do. Yet, Wujin was holding it steadily, as if it belonged to him. Wujin looked up at the flying dragons and calmly asked the instructor if he could teach him how to use the spear. Around them, the entire arena was still in chaos as students ran for their lives. Meanwhile, the Divine Rhino Corps watched the scene while pretending to be shocked like everyone else. Yanqi stared at Wujin in disbelief. He could not believe that the boy had lifted an A-rank weapon. The red-haired member of the Corps immediately said it was impossible. There had to be something wrong. Samo added that even Yan Hanshuo, back when he was 15, could only wield a C-rank weapon, yet this boy was holding an A-rank spear. She wondered if something like that was even possible. The red-haired man insisted that there must be some kind of trick involved. Meanwhile, Kaijun was completely stunned by everything happening around him. He even wondered if this was still the real world. Another student nearby said that according to records, Yan Hanshuo first wielded an A-rank weapon at 19 years old. Wujin had apparently achieved it 4 years earlier. One of the bullies nervously asked their leader if they had just provoked someone they really should not have. Another bully quietly muttered that this level of ability could no longer be described as human. It was something only a god could do. More students began pointing toward Wujin. They remembered that he was the SSS rank potential student who had just been tested earlier. They stared at him in disbelief. He was clearly only 15 years old, yet he was holding an A-rank weapon like it was nothing. Wujin then turned back to the instructor. He calmly asked if the instructor still did not plan to teach him how to use the spear. Gangchui struggled to stand up, despite the drug weakening his body. He said that even if Wujin could lift and swing the spear, accuracy without proper training would be nearly impossible. Wujin responded that the instructor should not answer questions that were not asked, that he only wanted to know the technique for a charged spear strike. Gang Chui looked at him for a moment. Something about the boy made him feel that he could trust him, so he quickly explained the technique. First, shift the center of gravity to the side, holding the spear. Prepare the body like drawing a reverse bow. Wu Jin immediately adjusted his stance. Gang Chui continued giving instructions. The arm holding the spear should bend at a 90-degree angle. The hand gripping the spear must move behind the head. To maintain accuracy, the spear must stay aligned with the right line of sight. Wu Jin followed each instruction perfectly. He slowly drew the spear back while locking his gaze on the dragon flying above. This might have been the first time he used this technique again, but there was no room for failure. Gang Chui told him that the final step was simple. Swing the spear with conviction. Wu Jin exhaled slowly. Then he released the spear. The weapon shot forward like a bolt of lightning. The spear cut through the air at incredible speed. In the next second, it pierced straight through the dragon's neck. The blade sliced through the thick scales with terrifying precision. The dragon's head separated from its body, as if something had exploded. The massive head fell from the sky while the body crashed down moments later. The attack had been executed with perfect accuracy, almost as if Wu Jin had done it many times before. The truth about S-rank demonic dragons was simple. Their fire attacks were incredibly fast and powerful, but their physical bodies were not completely indestructible. Wu Jin and the instructor both watched the enormous corpse fall from the sky. After a moment, Wu Jin calmly explained something. To deal with fire-breathing dragons, one simply needed to target the flame conversion point on their neck. By injecting a small amount of accelerant into that point, the dragon could be forced to destroy itself. At that moment, a metal container dropped to the ground nearby. Inside, it was a special type of gasoline mixed with ether and other substances that, when combined with an accelerant, it could instantly create a far more powerful flame reaction. Wu Jin looked at the instructor briefly and said that he should take note of this. It was known as a secret technique used by a certain challenger who specialized in hunting fire-breathing dragons. No one present realized the truth. The challenger who created that technique was standing right in front of them, Yan Hanshuo himself under the disguise of Xiao Wujin. The dragon's massive body crashed to the ground after falling from the sky. The entire arena fell into stunned silence for a moment. Guangqi then remembered a time when Yan Hanshuo told him to take note of a skill. He said the method used earlier was his exclusive secret technique for killing fire-breathing dragons. Wait. Those were the same words Wu Jin said. The moment the instructor heard those words, his mind immediately flashed to a certain person. The sentence Wu Jin just said sounded almost exactly like something Hanshuo used to say. Around them, the other students were still staring in shock. They had just witnessed Wu Jin kill an S-rank demonic dragon in a single attack. Someone began shouting that he was a genius. Another student loudly said that he was definitely a genius who far surpassed Yan Hanshuo. One student said he had once heard about a counter method for dealing with fire-breathing dragons, but even so, what Wu Jin had just done still seemed too exaggerated. While everyone was still talking in disbelief, the members of the Divine Rhino Corps stood together nearby in one place. Sammo quietly asked Yanxi what he thought about what had just happened. Her tone sounded like she was waiting for their new captain to give his judgment. Meanwhile, the situation in the arena had not fully calmed down yet. Some B-rank demonic dragons were still flying around. Several instructors and challengers continued fighting them. A number of students also stepped forward to help the instructors deal with the remaining monsters. However, Kaijun and another student with long blonde hair remained standing where they were. He told the others that they should leave it to the instructors, since that might be the better option. "What a bunch of show-offs," the blonde girl said. Not long after, Wu Jin helped the injured Gang Chui stand up. He asked him calmly if he could still stand, or if he wanted to lie down for a bit longer. The instructor steadied himself and replied that he could stand. The drug that had been injected earlier seemed to be a short-duration potion, so his strength was slowly returning. As he stood there, Gang Chui could not stop thinking about what Wu Jin had said earlier. He wondered if it was just a coincidence. Just then, the Divine Rhino Corps began walking toward them. They stopped a few steps away from Wu Jin and Gang Chui. Shi even clapped his hands slowly as if praising Wu Jin's performance. He said that it really lived up to the reason their Divine Rhino Corps came here personally. After all, they had indeed encountered an unprecedented genius youth. He was clearly referring to Wu Jin. Wu Jin looked at them coldly. Anger flashed in his eyes, but he forced himself to suppress it. Shi then turned to the instructor and apologized. He explained that everything that happened earlier had been an order from their superiors. According to him, they wanted to test the adaptability of the contestants in this competition. That was why they arranged the sudden descent of the demonic dragons. Because of this plan, they also had to use certain methods to prevent the instructors from interfering. Gang Chui looked at him suspiciously. He replied with a cold tone, the so-called order from the superiors involved using an S-rank demonic dragon to test a group of 15-year-old challengers. He said they were really something. She responded that after Yan Hanshuo's death, they urgently needed new combat-ready forces, so he hoped everyone would understand the reason behind their decision. At that moment, Wu Jin suddenly spoke. He addressed Yan Shi directly as Senior Yan Shi. Both Shi and Gang Chui looked at him, waiting to hear what he wanted to say. Wu Jin then asked a simple question. He asked if Captain Yan Hanshuo had said anything to them before he died. Yan Shi replied that their captain did indeed leave some final words. Samo stepped in and added that the time back then had been too tight. She started saying that the captain did not, but before she could finish, Ji interrupted her. He quickly said that Captain Hanshuo only told them not to feel any guilt. He said that the captain told them that only by living well could they be worthy of his sacrifice. Wu Jin listened quietly. Inside his mind, he almost laughed. Yan Shi and the rest of the Divine Rhino Corps continued talking. They said they never told these words to the reporters before because they could not bring themselves to speak about it. They even said that they constantly felt guilty toward their captain. To outsiders, it sounded sincere. But in reality, most of them were simply acting. Even some members of the Corps looked tired of keeping up the act. Wu Jin simply said that he understood. Gang Chui quietly watched Wu Jin's reaction. Then Wu Jin added something else. Since that was the case, he sincerely wished them well. He said they should properly enjoy the new life that Captain Hanshuo had brought them. He even added that they should live as many days as they could. Wu Jin stared directly at the members of the Corps. In his mind, those words carried a clear threat, but outwardly his face remained calm. Yan Shi simply replied that they would. After that, Wu Jin walked straight past them. As he left, Yan Shi spoke again from behind. He said that since the competition was now over, Wu Jin should enjoy the treatment of being the moon surrounded by stars. Wu Jin did not respond. In his mind, he cursed them. He thought that they were a group of shameless people. Before he could finish his thoughts, a large group of students suddenly ran toward him. They surrounded him immediately. Some were asking for his autograph, and others were praising him loudly, as if he were a celebrity. In the middle of the commotion, one of the officials approached him and politely asked him to follow him to a higher-level testing instrument for further evaluation. Not far away, some students were still fighting the remaining dragons. One of them complained that Wu Jin had really shown off today, and for some reason it irritated them a little. Suddenly, several cars drove directly into the arena. The students nearby were shocked when they saw them. The doors of one of the vehicles opened, and a woman stepped out carrying a massive Gatling gun. She shouted loudly that she would only say this once, that everyone should get lost immediately. Otherwise, every single one of them would get a taste of her Gatling gun. The man standing beside her also shouted. He scolded the students, saying they were just a bunch of brats who were still wet behind the ears. This was a national-level competition, not a place for fan culture nonsense. The students who had been crowding around Wu Jin immediately noticed the woman's weapon. They quickly scattered and ran away. At that moment, an old man jumped out of another car and rushed straight toward Wu Jin. He asked anxiously if the kid was hurt. He kept blaming himself for not protecting him properly. The old man then hurriedly told Wu Jin to get into the car so he could take him somewhere safe to rest. This old man was one of the 4 great high school principals. He's the principal of Wubo High School. Before he could finish speaking, another old man wearing a brown suit suddenly kicked him aside. He angrily told him to screw off and asked who he thought he was to take Wu Jin away. This man was also one of the 4 great high school principals. He's the principal of Longhu High School. Not far away stood another elderly man dressed in a white suit. He's the principal of Qingfeng High School. The surrounding students were shocked as they immediately recognized them. The principals of the 4 great high schools had all arrived in person. One student whispered that they must have heard about the genius youth's performance and rushed here to recruit him. Some students looked at Wu Jin with envy. The principal of Longhu High School spoke first. He said there was no need for small talk. If Wu Jin chose to attend their school, they would directly deposit 8.8 million into his personal account. The principal of Qingfeng High School immediately argued back. He said that if Wu Jin came to their school, they would arrange for a full set of A-rank equipment to be forged for him. Then the principal of Wubo High School shouted loudly. He said he would go even further. If Woojin came to Wubo High School, they would forge an S-rank weapon for him. He even promised that the weapons department would personally create a custom-made exclusive S-rank weapon just for Woojin. He proudly added that Wubo High School possessed the capability to manufacture the highest standard weapons. Surely everyone knew that. One of the other principals thought silently that even though he was already a principal, he still could not avoid these kinds of competitive bidding situations. Another principal quietly calculated that the cheapest S-rank weapon currently on the market cost nearly 30 million, yet this man had casually offered one. It was clear he was going all out. At that moment, a voice came from inside a black car parked nearby. The man inside said that it seemed the old men still did not understand something. The other principals immediately turned toward the car. They clearly recognized the person inside. The door slowly opened, and the man stepped out. He calmly said that true powerhouses would never accept simple handouts. He pulled out a black card and held it up. He said that for someone truly talented, the valuable thing was this: a space-time gate black card. A universal access card that worked for all ranks, all types, and all permissions. This man was the head of the 4 great high schools, the principal of Jinju High School. At that exact moment, a small notification appeared in front of Woojin. Only he could see it, and it displayed, Revenge Progress, 1%. Honestly, guys, I can't with this manhwa. We're only at 1% and it's already fucking insane. The black card had a golden dragon engraved on its surface. When the principal turned it around to show the back, the other principals immediately recognized it. Their expressions changed. One of them even wiped the sweat from his forehead because he already knew their offers could not compete with that. Another principal spoke with a serious tone. He said that as far as he knew, the all-rank universal black card had only been possessed by one challenger before. That person was the recently deceased Yanhan Shuo. None of them realized that Yanhan Shuo was actually standing among them at that very moment. Woojin looked at the card carefully before speaking. He asked what the conditions were. He also asked whether accepting it meant that he had to enroll in their high school. His question triggered a memory. Back when Hanshuo was still alive, inside the office of Jinju High School, the principal was handing the same black card to Hanshuo. The principal told him that it was a gift to congratulate him for becoming the first SSS rank challenger. He explained that the item had been specially requested from the state and created specifically for him. Hanshuo stood quietly in front of the desk. He took the black card and held it in his hand, examining it carefully. After looking at it for a moment, he asked what the condition was for such a precious item. He even guessed whether the condition involved becoming the spokesperson of the school. The principal shook his head. He said that whether Hanshuo agreed or not, the black card would still be given to him. It was given through sincerity. Back in the present, the principal repeated the same explanation. He said that through sincerity meant that regardless of the outcome, the gift would still be given. This principal had a noticeable scar across his eye. Without hesitation, he tossed the black card toward Woojin, and he caught it calmly between 2 fingers. The principal with the scar then turned around and walked back to his car. Before leaving, he said that Woojin did not need to give him an answer right away. Once he finished thinking about it, he could simply come find him. As the car began to drive away, the other principals looked frustrated. One of them complained that the old man had not even left them a single chance. Another principal said it was unfair that only Jinju High School could apply for something like the black card. Someone angrily pointed out that Jinju High School had the backing of the state. By the time everything settled down, it was already nighttime. Most of the students had already gone home. However, a number of students still kept following Woojin around since he had become famous overnight. Since Kaijun came from a wealthy family, he had arrived with his own car, and Woojin ended up riding in the same car with him. As the vehicle drove away, Woojin leaned back in the seat and said he was thankful that he had finally managed to shake off the group of followers. Kaijun waved it off casually. He said it was nothing. Then he asked Woojin if he was planning to go home. If so, he could simply tell the driver the address. Woojin thought for a moment before answering. He said they should go to Kaijun's house instead. Kaijun was surprised. Woojin explained his reasoning that after what happened today, he had stood out far too much, and there's always the possibility that someone might try to target him. Compared to his own home, Kaijun's house would be safer since Kaijun's father was an SS rank challenger. Kaijun quickly agreed. In fact, he looked extremely happy. The once-in-a-century genius youth was actually going to stay at his house. He even thought to himself that he should take hundreds of photos as souvenirs. He joked that after putting so much effort into escaping his followers, it turned out that Kaijun was actually one of them. At that moment, a notification appeared in front of Woojin. 2 new prompts appeared. Number 1, rank mission appeared. Complete the mission to obtain an A-rank saber. Condition, clear a B-rank dungeon solo. Number 2, since the host has been reborn, a chance to reselect a class will be offered. Woojin thought quietly about the message. Clearing a B-rank dungeon solo would normally be impossible. Even with the support of the no-level system, it was still extremely dangerous. However, the second prompt made him think about something else. Since he had already decided to switch weapon types, perhaps he should also reconsider his class. After all, his original class was a swordsman. That class was better suited for lightsabers rather than heavy sabers. He decided not to think too deeply about it for now, and that there's something else he wanted to do first. After a moment of silence, Woojin suddenly spoke again. He asked Kaijun if they could stop at another place before going to his house. Kaijun looked worried. He immediately said that he promised not to disturb him if that was the concern. Woojin shook his head. It was not about that. There was simply someone he wanted to see, then Kaijun could send someone to pick him up afterward. Not long after, the car stopped in front of a condominium building. Woojin got out and walked inside. As he entered the building, he thought to himself that there was only one person in the world he could speak honestly to without holding anything back. Even so, when Woojin finally reached the apartment door, he hesitated for a moment. His hand hovered in the air before he slowly knocked. The sound of the knock echoed faintly through the quiet hallway. For a few seconds, there was no response. Then a voice came from inside the apartment, saying that they were coming to open the door. Woojin waited outside, trying to steady himself, but he still felt uneasy for some reason. A moment later, the door unlocked. The moment Woojin saw the person standing in the doorway, his entire body froze. It was Yan Shi. For a brief second, neither of them moved. Woojin could not understand what he was seeing. Why was Yan Shi here? This was supposed to be Ling Ting's home. Yan Shi clearly did not expect to see him either. His expression showed obvious surprise as he stared at Woojin standing outside the door. Before either of them could say anything, Ling Ting suddenly appeared from behind Yan Shi. She looked curious and asked who Yan Shi was talking to. Yan Shi then turned to Woojin with a cold expression. He asked if it was really him. Then he questioned what Woojin was trying to do by visiting someone else's fiancé's home in the middle of the night. Hearing those words made Woojin both angry and upset. But, of course, he could not reveal his true identity, so he quickly made up a story. He said that he was actually Hanshuo's sworn younger brother. He then explained that his brother had never mentioned him publicly all these years, so Ling Ting might not know about him. He said that he came today to give her something. When Ling Ting heard this, her expression changed. A trace of sadness appeared in her eyes. Woojin continued speaking. He said that it was an important personal item that belonged to his brother before he died, and it had been kept in his care until now. Yan Shi listened and thought to himself that it explained something why he had felt earlier that this boy seemed strangely similar to Hanshuo. Now it made sense. If he was Hanshuo's sworn younger brother, that similarity would not be surprising. Yan Shi then pretended that Hanshuo had mentioned this younger brother a few times when he was alive, then said he remembers hearing about him. He invited Woojin to come inside because of that. Inside his mind, Woojin could not help thinking that this man truly could not stop acting, not even for a moment. The three of them went inside the apartment. Woojin was silently observing the apartment. It was a place he once knew very well. Many of the things inside were still the same as before. The decorations had not changed much, but the person standing here now was different. After a short pause, Woojin suddenly spoke. He asked another question. He said that earlier Yan Shi had clearly mentioned that Ling Ting was someone else's fiancé. If that was the case, why was he here at this hour? Yan Shi seemed slightly surprised by the question. He looked at Woojin for a moment before letting out a small laugh. Then he said that Woojin must have misunderstood something. His tone was calm, as if the situation was completely normal. Yan Shi continued, explaining that the person he had referred to earlier as someone else's fiancé was actually himself. He was Ling Ting's fiancé. The words struck Woojin like a sudden blow. For a moment, his mind went completely blank. His body froze. The person he loved, the woman who once stood beside him when he was alive, now is engaged to the man who betrayed him. He had imagined many possibilities before coming here, but this was not one of them. She said that the wedding had already been decided in 1 month. He and Ling Ting would officially get married. The words echoed in Wu Jin's mind. As Yanxi calmly said that he and Lingting would be getting married in 1 month, the words felt like a blade sinking straight into Wu Jin's chest. For Han Shuo, no. For the man now living as Wu Jin, it was almost unbearable. Before Wu Jin could say anything, Lingting suddenly reacted. Her expression turned angry as she immediately denied it. She said she had never agreed to any marriage. Her parents had no right to decide something like that for her. She told Yanxi to stop spreading rumors. Her voice was full of anger and disbelief. But Yanxi remained completely calm. He looked almost amused by her reaction. He simply replied that as far as he knew, her parents had already begun sending out wedding invitations since early that morning. Schools, relatives, family, friends, one after another had already received the news. Lingting stared at him in disbelief and asked if he was serious. Yanxi nodded casually. Then he added something that made the atmosphere even heavier. He said that during the 6 years Lingting had dated Han Shuo, her parents had never been this proactive about anything. But now they were moving so quickly. It seemed that in their eyes, Yanxi was much more suitable than someone else's sworn brother. Those words clearly carried a hidden meaning. Wu Jin's expression darkened, and he was furious inside. For a few seconds, none of them spoke. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Then suddenly, Wu Jin laughed. The sound caught both of them off guard. He laughed as if Yanxi had just said something funny. He said that now he understood something. No wonder his brother Han Shuo could always suppress Yanxi when he was alive, and no wonder Han Shuo was able to stay together with sister Lingting. As he spoke, Wu Jin casually stepped closer and lightly tapped Yanxi on the chest. His tone sounded playful, but his words were sharp. He said that if he were sister Lingting, he would not agree to marry Yanxi either. After all, every other sentence out of Yanxi's mouth seemed to involve her parents. Wu Jin then leaned back comfortably onto the sofa. He looked completely relaxed. Then he added another comment. He said that if someone who did not know the situation heard Yanxi talking, they might think Yanxi was not actually trying to pursue Lingting. Instead, it would sound like he was trying to form a love triangle with Lingting and her parents. The comment irritated Yanxi immediately, but Lingting was also surprised. She stared at Wu Jin, unsure whether he was joking or being serious. For some reason, the way he spoke felt strangely familiar. A memory suddenly surfaced in Lingting's mind. Back when Han Shuo was still alive, they had once sat together in the same living room. They were even sitting on this exact sofa, and they had been talking about her parents at the time. Han Shuo had joked that it's okay if he did not get along with her parents. He wasn't trying to start a love triangle with them anyway. That memory made Lingting pause. That was why Wu Jin's words sounded so familiar to her. She could not explain why, but something about this boy reminded her strongly of Han Shuo, even though he had never mentioned this younger brother before. Yanxi quickly cut the conversation short. He asked Wu Jin what item he had come to deliver, then he told him to hand it over. Wu Jin tilted his head slightly and smiled. He asked if Yanxi was really trying to declare sovereignty over a 15-year-old kid, and even joked that Yanxi seemed pretty aggressive about it. Then Wu Jin slowly took out a small red box. He held it carefully in his hand. His tone changed slightly. He said that before his death, Brother Han Shuo had personally instructed him to deliver this item to Sister Lingting, and it had to be given to her alone. No outsiders were supposed to be present. As he said this, Wu Jin looked directly at Yanxi. His eyes seemed to carry a hidden message. He then added that it was strange. He believed Han Shuo would have personally delivered it himself, but it seemed that Han Shuo had encountered some unexpected accident and did not have time to do so. Yanxi coughed lightly. He clearly understood what Wu Jin was implying. Meanwhile, tears had already started rolling down Lingting's face. She wiped them away and quietly said that Yanxi should go back as Han Shuo's keepsake was very important to her. She wanted to receive it alone. Yanxi looked surprised by her request, but he had no reason to refuse. So he picked up his jacket, and as he put it on, he gave one final reminder. The wedding invitations had already been sent out, and if Lingting planned to change anything now, her parents would not have an easy time dealing with the consequences. Hearing that made Lingting feel sick to her stomach. Everything was happening so quickly that she still could not process it. Yanxi walked to the door and left the apartment. The door closed behind him, and now only Wu Jin and Lingting remained in the room. Wu Jin placed the small red box on the table. Then he spoke calmly. He said that the bastard was probably waiting for him in the hallway outside, so he would just leave through the study window instead. Lingting looked surprised. How does he know about the study window? Another memory suddenly appeared in her mind. Back when Hanshua used to visit her secretly, there had been a time when her parents suddenly knocked on the door. She had quickly told Hanshua to escape through the study window, because from there he could reach the rooftop without being discovered. Lingting looked at Woojin again. How did this kid know about that? By then, Woojin had already walked to the study room. He opened the window and looked outside, calculating the distance to the rooftop. Before climbing out, he turned back and said one last thing. "See you later." Those simple words instantly made Lingting cry. Because Hanshua used to say the exact same thing whenever he left through that window. Tears formed in her eyes. Inside the apartment, Lingting remained standing in front of the open window. She did not move for a long moment. Meanwhile, on the rooftop of the condominium, Woojin was sitting near the edge of the building. From where he sat, the entire city stretched out in front of him. He thought to himself that he only had 1 month. 1 month before the wedding. Within that short time, he had to find a way to gain leverage against Yan Shi and the others. No matter what it took, he had to stop that wedding from happening. Just as he was thinking about this, a notification suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Stage 1 mission. Complete the mission to obtain an A-rank saber. Condition: clear a B-rank dungeon solo. Woojin frowned slightly as he read the message. Originally, his plan had been different, that he had intended to complete the class change mission first. By doing that, he could choose a profession that would better suit the heavy saber weapon style he had recently decided to use. His old swordsman class was more suitable for lightsabers, not for heavier weapons. But now the situation has changed, and time was no longer on his side. If he wanted to challenge Yan Shi and stop the wedding, he needed to become stronger as soon as possible. There was no room for hesitation anymore. Woojin slowly reached into his pocket and took out the black card the principal had given him earlier. After a moment, Woojin put the card away and pulled out his phone. He dialed Kaijun's number. The call connected quickly. On the other side, Kaijun immediately asked if Woojin wanted him to come pick him up, but Woojin asked something else instead. He asked if Kaijun could help him find a nearby B-rank dungeon that had not yet been conquered. Kaijun sounded slightly confused, but still started searching immediately. A few moments later, he found one. Then he asked Woojin what he was planning to do. Woojin did not hesitate when answering. He calmly said that he was going to challenge the dungeon alone, a solo conquest. As he said those words, he was still holding the black card tightly in his hand. Meanwhile, outside the condominium building, Kaijun's driver was still waiting. The night air had grown colder and he was shivering. He's wondering why the kid still has not come down yet. Then he muttered quietly to himself. Surely that boy was not planning to spend the entire night up on the rooftop, was he? This is our MC's first time entering a B-rank dungeon alone again after many years. The moment he stepped inside, the place looked like a completely ruined city. Broken concrete covered the ground everywhere. Buildings had collapsed or were half destroyed. Piles of rubble blocked the streets, and dust floated quietly in the cold air. Everything looked gray and lifeless. Woojin walked slowly through the destroyed streets. His footsteps echoed lightly against the cracked pavement while he moved forward, calmly observing his surroundings. At the same time, he was reviewing his equipment. Right now he has several items equipped. Burning armor, a C-rank armor. Silver Star Rapid Boots, a pair of C-rank boots. Cyan Feather Helmet, a C-rank helmet. Divine Strength Bracers, a pair of C-rank bracers. All of these had been gathered by Kaijun at the last minute. Woojin paused for a moment and opened his character status panel. His stats had clearly increased after equipping the items. He briefly thought about how Kaijun had managed to prepare everything so quickly. Even with good connections, gathering multiple C-rank pieces of equipment in such a short time was not easy. After all, a 15-year-old entering a B-rank dungeon alone was something almost unheard of. Most challengers would not dare attempt something like that. Woojin continued walking deeper into the ruined city. Compared to dungeons below C-rank, the biggest difference in B-rank dungeons was the presence of elite monsters. These monsters could appear randomly among normal mobs, and sometimes they appeared without warning, making the situation much more dangerous. If someone failed to deal with them properly, they could become even more troublesome than the dungeon's final boss. Woojin continued walking while scanning the empty streets. He quietly wondered what type of dungeon this was. Fierce beasts, robots, or maybe skeleton ghosts. Just as he was thinking, a figure suddenly appeared behind him. A monster emerged only a few meters away. Part of its skull was missing, exposing part of its brain. Without hesitation, the zombie lunged forward and rushed straight at Woojin. But Woojin remained completely calm. In his previous life, he had already reached SSS rank, so compared to that level of experience, a B-rank dungeon was nothing more than a warm-up. To him, these monsters were barely a threat. He casually summoned his saber, and the heavy weapon appeared in his hand. Without even turning fully around, he thrust the blade backward. The saber pierced straight through the zombie's chest. The attack was clean and effortless. A system notification appeared. Challenger current rank, C rank, killing B rank monsters above level. No level system activated. Woojin glanced at the message briefly before shifting his attention back to his surroundings. This dungeon had infection attributes. Dungeons like this usually tested a challenger's endurance and mental resistance. Just then, more movement appeared behind him. Several zombies rushed out from the surrounding ruins almost at the same time. Woojin narrowed his eyes slightly. There were already quite a few of them. He quickly realized something. Among the equipment Kajin had prepared, there was no necklace that boosted spirit resistance. That meant he absolutely could not get bitten, and even a single infection could affect his body and mental state. If the virus spread through him, it could weaken his strength and interfere with his consciousness. The zombies started charging toward him. Some held broken weapons, and others attacked using their claws. They came from different directions at the same time. Woojin did not wait for them to surround him. He shifted his stance and moved forward first. His saber swung sideways, and the heavy blade cut through the neck of the first zombie. Before the body even collapsed, Woojin stepped forward again. Another swing. The blade sliced across another zombie's chest, splitting it open. A third zombie rushed from the side, then Woojin turned his body and brought the saber down hard. Notifications appeared repeatedly in front of him. Killed B-rank monster above level. Experience gained. But after several exchanges, Woojin started noticing something. This saber was very heavy. Although the power was strong, the weight slowed his movement slightly, and sometimes he had to put extra strength into turning the blade. Just then, a zombie suddenly lunged from behind him. There was no time to swing the saber, so instead, Woojin kicked and his leg slammed directly into the zombie's chest. The force sent the creature flying several meters away. Woojin exhaled slowly. Using such a heavy saber was still unfamiliar. When the blade rested on the ground, its weight even cracked the concrete beneath it. But backing down was not an option as more zombies continued appearing from different directions. So Woojin made a quick decision. He threw the saber forward. The heavy weapon spun through the air like a giant blade and smashed into a zombie, knocking it down. Immediately after, he activated a general skill, Weapon Recall. The saber flashed briefly before flying straight back into his hand. But the number of zombies kept increasing. It felt like every time he killed one, 2 more appeared. Woojin let out a tired sigh. His patience was starting to wear thin. A faint purple aura slowly appeared around his body. He lifted the saber again. Blue and purple energy started gathering along the blade. Then he swung. A massive slash shot forward like lightning. The attack tore straight through multiple zombies at once. Bodies were cut apart instantly, and blood sprayed across the ruined street as several zombies collapsed at the same time. This skill was called Ghost Slash. Our MC continued being a slaughter machine. The attack moved so fast that it looked almost like a sudden explosion across the battlefield. Within seconds, dozens of zombies had been cut down. When the dust settled, zombie bodies were scattered across the ground. Broken concrete, rubble, and blood covered the street. Woojin casually sat down on a large piece of concrete. He pulled out a recovery potion and drank it as his fatigue level showed 147 out of 150. Even though he had not suffered any injuries, the stamina consumption was much higher than expected. Using a heavy saber required far more energy, and on top of that, he could not use the exclusive skills meant for lightsabers. Right now, he could only rely on general skills and brute force. Several times during the fight, he had almost been injured. He remembered the earlier moment when the zombie suddenly appeared behind him. At that time, he had no choice but to kick it away. Meanwhile, on top of a damaged building nearby, 2 figures stood silently. They were also zombies, but they looked far more powerful than the ones Woojin had been fighting. One had bandages wrapped all over his body, and the other looked like a woman, with a long metal screw embedded through her head. The 2 elite zombies had been watching the entire fight. They had clearly seen how easily Woojin destroyed their zombie mobs. Of course, Woojin had already noticed them as well. He looked up and stared directly at them. Elite monsters. But something felt strange because normally elite monsters appeared together with the mobs. Yet these two had stayed behind and waited until the end. Suddenly, the female zombie released a strong purple aura. A moment later, something unexpected happened. The zombies Woojin had already killed started moving again. One by one, the corpses slowly stood up. The elite zombie had the ability to revive dead zombies. Woojin quickly understood their plan. Since he was alone, they planned to win through numbers, a slow war of attrition. The two elite zombies looked down at him with satisfied expressions. They believed the situation had already turned in their favor. Meanwhile, Woojin remained seated calmly on the concrete. His saber was still stuck in the ground beside him. Then suddenly, the revived zombies exploded. One after another, their bodies burst apart before the stay thought it could even take a few steps. The elite zombies froze in shock. Woojin slowly stood up. Even though his level had dropped back to C rank after returning to his younger body, the titles he had obtained in his previous life still remained. The effect that had just triggered was called Zombie Reaper. A system notification appeared, Zombie Reaper. Effect causes permanent death to zombies, prevents regeneration, recovery, or resurrection. Achievement condition kill 10,000 zombies. Woojin taunted the two. He shared that the title was something he obtained years ago. When he was 18, he had spent months clearing zombie dungeons repeatedly in order to level up quickly. Their parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles were probably already killed by him. Who knows, our MC added. He had killed so many zombies during that time that they eventually became nothing more than walking experience points in his eyes. The two elite zombies were completely enraged, and they immediately rushed toward him. A system notification appeared. Elite monster enraged. Attack increased by 30%. Defense decreased by 30%. Woojin calmly adjusted his stance as everything had gone according to plan. If he timed it properly, he could kill them in midair. But just as he prepared to attack, the ground suddenly started shaking. A deep rumbling sound spread across the ruined city. Pieces of concrete and debris began falling from the damaged buildings around him. Woojin looked around, slightly confused, and even the elite zombies stopped moving and looked toward the distance. Then something enormous appeared. A massive zombie slowly walked forward from the far end of the ruined city. The creature was almost as tall as several buildings, and huge nails were hammered into its head. Its stomach was torn open, revealing piles of skeletons moving inside. Each step it took shook the ground. Then multiple system notifications appeared at the same time. Warning: boss enraged. Challenger actions triggered early boss appearance. Rewards increased by 200%. Woojin looked up at the enormous zombie boss. For the first time since entering the dungeon, his expression finally became a little more serious. The situation had clearly become much more troublesome. The giant began looking for him. The biggest taboo on a solo dungeon challenge is fighting many enemies alone. It causes one to completely lose the advantage of their traits. He had a speed advantage against the girl zombie, an attack power disadvantage against the giant, and an HP disadvantage against the boy zombie. As he tried to run from the monster, Woojin reminded himself not to panic. The boss moved very slowly. He started planning his moves. First, he had to put distance between himself and the boss, then wait for the others to catch up so he could take them out first. But when he looked back, that wasn't the case. The elite zombies had stayed behind. Then, something started coming out from the giant's mouth. A concrete pillar, maybe? Where the fuck did that come from? Sir? And with a loud roar, it spit the concrete straight toward Woojin. The huge rock flew through the air like a missile. Woojin saw it coming and immediately jumped to the side. The moment the boulder hit the building behind him, a massive crash echoed through the ruined city. The impact was so powerful that the entire wall of the building exploded apart. Concrete shattered and large chunks of debris flew everywhere. The building itself cracked and partially collapsed from the force of the hit. On the other side of the battlefield, the bandaged zombie spoke in a strange language. Although the words were unfamiliar, the meaning was clear. It was asking if the boulder had crushed Woojin. The two elite zombies began walking toward the place where the dust was still settling. But they did not realize something. Woojin was already moving. The moment the dust gave him cover, he quietly rushed forward. He attacked without hesitation the moment he saw an opening. The saber swung in a wide arc, and the blade cut straight through the bandaged zombie's arm. Its hand fell off. The female zombie leapt away just in time. The bandaged zombie staggered backward. The female zombie quickly moved in front of the bandaged zombie as if shielding him. She spoke again in that strange language, clearly asking if he was all right. The bandaged zombie nodded and replied that the attack had been close. Then something disturbing happened. The arm that had just been cut off began to regenerate. Flesh slowly formed again until the hand completely recovered. Wu Jin narrowed his eyes. Just as he expected, the bandaged zombie was a recovery-type elite monster. His original plan had been to cut its head off in one strike, but the saber he was using was heavier than his usual weapon. Because of that small delay, the zombie had managed to react in time. The perfect sneak attack had been wasted. Wu Jin and the two elite zombies stood facing each other. All of them had already shifted into a combat stance. Just then, the zombie boss let out a loud roar and the sound shook the entire ruined city. It was clearly searching for Wu Jin. A moment later, the giant creature had already moved closer. Now it stood only a few meters away. Another system notification appeared. Boss monster enraged. Attack power increased by 30%. Defense decreased by 30%. Wu Jin quickly analyzed the situation. The boss was the fastest threat right now, and if he could deal with it first, the fight would become easier. Without wasting another second, he rushed forward. His body shot ahead at full speed, and Wu Jin slid between its massive legs and passed directly underneath its body. He quickly reached the boss's back. A system tip appeared in front of him. Target weak point detected. Attacks to this area will deal 300% defense-penetrating damage. Wu Jin raised his saber and prepared to strike. But before his blade could land, the female zombie suddenly rushed over, and her weapon slammed directly into Wu Jin's saber. The impact stopped his attack completely. She had deliberately blocked the strike to protect the boss. Even though the zombie boss was facing the opposite direction, it still sensed the attack behind it. The boss immediately became even more enraged. Its enormous hand came crashing down toward them. Then, its huge palm smashed the ground with terrifying force. The impact shook the entire area, and concrete shattered, and the ground cracked open. Luckily, both Wu Jin and the female zombie jumped away at the last second. But just as Wu Jin regained his balance, the bandaged zombie suddenly appeared behind him. Before Wu Jin could react, the zombie grabbed his arm and bit down hard. Its rotten teeth sank deep into his flesh. Wu Jin immediately tried to strike back, but something felt wrong. His body suddenly felt heavier. A warning notification appeared. Infection detected. HP decreased by 36 per second. Speed decreased. Attack power decreased. The infection was already spreading. Wu Jin's face darkened. The elite zombies quickly realized what had happened, and they could see the advantage had shifted. They began mocking him in their strange language. At that same time, a massive shadow suddenly appeared above Wu Jin. The zombie boss had already lifted its huge foot. It stomped down with terrifying force that the ground exploded on impact. A giant crater was even formed where the foot landed. Fortunately, Wu Jin had already jumped away and barely escaped being crushed. At this point, the situation had become extremely dangerous. His body was weakening from the infection, and the boss was constantly attacking. The elite zombies were still chasing him. For now, the only option was to run. Wu Jin turned and started moving quickly through the ruins. He needed time to think of another plan, but he didn't get far. The female zombie suddenly appeared in front of him. She blocked his path and mocked him again. It was clear she was confident that he could not escape. Wu Jin immediately threw a punch, but the female zombie reacted faster. Her blade flashed. In the next second, one of Wu Jin's arms was cut off. The pain hit instantly. The two elite zombies stood right in front of him now. Both of them looked down at him, as if the fight was already over. Wu Jin's mind raced. This was only a B-rank dungeon. For someone who once reached SSS rank, this should have been easy, but of course, the zombie infection had weakened him too much. Before he could move again, a massive hand suddenly closed around him, and the zombie boss had grabbed him. Its grip was enormous. Then it slowly lifted him toward its mouth. Rows of huge teeth filled the creature's mouth, and without hesitation, the boss shoved him inside. Wu Jin landed on the monster's giant tongue. The smell was disgusting. He then slid deeper inside the creature's mouth and fell straight down into its stomach. Everything around him was dark and filled with thick acid. Outside the B-rank dungeon, Cajun and his driver were still waiting. They stood near the entrance of the space-time gate, then suddenly a black car stopped in front of them. The door opened, and the person who stepped out was the principal of Jinhui High School. He immediately asked what they were doing there. Kaijun looked surprised. The principal calmly explained the situation. that the black card given to Wu Jin had a tracker installed in it. When the card detected that a B-rank space-time gate had been opened, he immediately guessed who was responsible. It could only be that reckless brat. Kejun was shocked, as he had no idea the card contained a tracker. The principal simply said that it was necessary. After all, even Yan Hanshuo had only cleared a B-rank dungeon solo when he was 18. A 15-year-old attempting the same thing was far too risky. He looked toward the dungeon entrance with a serious expression. Everyone could only hope the heavens protect him and let there be no accidents. Inside the zombie boss's stomach, Wu Jin lay completely soaked in stomach acid. The disgusting liquid burned against his body. But his mind was not focused on the pain. Images kept appearing in his head the moment he saw Ling Ting again, the moment she opened the door, the way she looked at him. Then, the memory of standing in the same room with she and Ling Ting. Everything kept repeating in his mind. At that moment, Wu Jin realized something clearly. He could not fall here. Not yet. Just then, a new system notification appeared. Class change mission. Clicking confirm will immediately enter the class change dungeon. Upon entering, all challenger states will be fully refreshed to ensure the best class detection. Two options appeared, confirm or cancel. And without hesitation, Wu Jin pressed confirm. Inside the dungeon where the Divine Rhino Core had once left him behind, Wu Jin suddenly found himself teleported back again. The place looked exactly the same as before. He was now sitting at the top of a long set of stone stairs. Two tall columns stood on each side, and between them was a large stone cross fixed on top of a long concrete table. Wu Jin leaned his back against the table as his body looked exhausted. Everything that had just happened in the B-rank dungeon had drained him completely. The fight with the elite zombies, the infection, and the moment the boss monster swallowed him whole. A notification appeared in front of him. The system informed him that all of the challenger's conditions had been fully restored. All injuries and debuffs had been removed. Once the challenger was ready, he could press the start button to begin the test. Wu Jin quietly stared at the notification. Then the memories of the recent battle suddenly replayed in his mind. He remembered the moment the female zombie blocked his attack, then the moment the bandaged zombie suddenly appeared behind him, and the painful feeling when its teeth sank into his arm. He let out a slow breath. The class change mission was a special type of mission, and it could not normally be activated anywhere or anytime. The system had to bring the challenger into a special testing area. Since the system had restored all his conditions, even his missing arm had been restored. Wu Jin slowly raised his hand and looked at it. His arm looked completely normal again. He knew he had barely escaped disaster earlier. After resting for a moment, Wu Jin slowly stood up. A thought crossed his mind. After finishing this class change mission, he would most likely return to the B-rank dungeon again. The system usually resumed the previous situation after special missions ended. That meant one thing. He absolutely had to make the best use of this opportunity, and he needed to obtain a profession that matched him perfectly, the one profession that could allow him to unleash 100% of his real strength. Wu Jin looked again at the notification screen while touching his restored arm. After a short pause, he reached forward and pressed the start button. Immediately, the system announced that multiple rounds of testing would be arranged, and the weapon used in each round would be completely different. Killing a soldier enemy would give 2 points, getting hit would subtract 1 point, and striking a vital point would give an additional bonus point. If the challenger died during a test, the current weapon type would be permanently disabled. As soon as the instructions finished, several knight-like enemies suddenly appeared in front of him. They rose out of the ground as if the floor itself was producing them. The system then announced the first round. Current weapon type, dagger. A dagger suddenly appeared in Wu Jin's hand, and at the same time, the system adjusted his stat distribution. His speed increased significantly, and his penetration power and evasion also improved. These adjustments were designed to match the characteristics of a dagger user. Wu Jin did not waste any time. The moment the enemies started moving, he rushed forward. In a blink of an eye, he slipped behind one of the knights. He wrapped his arm around the enemy's neck and drove the dagger straight into its throat. A notification appeared saying that the assassination vital strike. Instant kill. Plus 3 points. 3 more enemies rushed toward him. Wu Jin jumped backward to avoid their attacks. Then the moment he landed, he moved again. His dagger flashed several times. One stab to the neck, another quick strike to the throat, and the third enemy fell right after. The movements were fast, clean, and precise. For a moment, it looked like Woojin had entered an assassination spree. Before long, the first round ended. Another notification appeared. The second round of testing will now begin, and the weapon type is saber. A heavy saber appeared in front of him. Woojin grabbed it immediately. Once again, the system adjusted his stats. This time, his strength, attack range, and explosive power increased dramatically. After the optimized stat distribution, his physical strength felt much greater than before. Woojin suddenly realized that if he had even half of this strength earlier in the B-rank dungeon, the fight with the zombies would not have become so difficult. Just then, something strange happened. The group of night enemies in front of him suddenly began merging together. Their bodies twisted and collapsed inward. They combined into one enormous night-like enemy. Woojin watched carefully. The system was clearly testing how different weapons handled different enemy types. Against larger monsters, instant kills were not always the best strategy, that the key was disabling their movement first. The giant knight attacked first. Woojin quickly dodged to the side. The moment the attack missed, he rushed forward. His body slid between the giant knight's legs. The saber swung low. With a powerful slash, he cut through the enemy's ankles. The giant knight lost its balance instantly, but Woojin did not stop. He grabbed onto the enemy's arm and climbed upward. Using the giant body like a ladder, he ran along its arm toward the neck. When he reached the back of its head, he activated a saber-exclusive skill. Lions roar, cleave. A bright yellow aura burst out from the blade. The energy looked like the shape of a roaring golden lion. The saber struck downward. The attack cut straight through the giant knight's neck. Its head flew off and crashed onto the ground. The massive body collapsed soon after. But the test did not stop as another group of enemies appeared immediately. The next round of testing is arranged with lightsaber as the weapon type. Woojin grabbed the lightsaber, and with a single sweeping attack, he released a powerful slash that cut through multiple enemies at once. They fell instantly. Another notification appeared. Next round, the weapon type is hammer. This time Woojin lifted the heavy hammer and smashed it straight down onto an enemy's head. The impact crushed the enemy instantly. The rounds continued quickly. Next weapon, katana. Woojin moved forward and cut through several enemies in one smooth motion. Spear is then the next weapon, and this time a dragon-like enemy appeared. Woojin threw the spear forward with perfect timing. The weapon pierced straight through the dragon's chest from a distance. Round after round continued. With every weapon, Woojin kept earning more and more points. Finally, the system announced that all weapon types had been tested. Now, the system would analyze which weapon type the challenger was most proficient with. Woojin let out a breath as this entire process had exhausted him. Still, he believed his overall performance had been quite decent, and now he just needed to see the result. Sweat slowly ran down his face as he waited for the screen to finish analyzing the data. Then the first result appeared. Dagger score, 98 points. Category, mastered level. Woojin nodded slightly. Dagger was not a bad result after all, as it had advantages in speed and assassination. But before he could think further, another notification appeared. System error detected. The system announced that the challenger's score using the saber was also 98 points. Woojin blinked. More notifications suddenly appeared one after another. The system had detected that the challenger had passed all weapon training tests. Woojin frowned because that result just made things more complicated, that even if he was skilled with every weapon, he could only choose one profession. He stared at the notifications, unsure what the system would decide. Then a new message appeared. Since the challenger's performance in every data category had reached an excellent level, the system would make a special exception. The challenger would receive a special exclusive profession. The name of the profession appeared on the screen, Weapon Master. This profession allowed the challenger to possess multiple professions at the same time, master multiple weapon types, and switch between them freely inside dungeons. On the screen appeared an image of a hooded figure holding several cards in his hands. Woojin was genuinely surprised. He had never heard of such a profession, even in his previous life. It looked like the system had created a completely exclusive class just for him. Woojin stared at it carefully. This meant that no matter what kind of monster or dungeon he encountered, he could simply switch professions to gain the advantage. The system continued explaining. A beginner weapon master was limited to 2 professions at first. To increase the number of professions, the challenger had to kill other challengers. Doing so would allow him to directly inherit their professions. Woojin raised an eyebrow when he saw that rule. Then a small smirk slowly appeared on his face. That condition actually suited him perfectly, but the surprises were not over yet. Before teleporting back to the B-rank dungeon, the challenger would be allowed to temporarily experience the full power of this exclusive profession. For a short period of time, the challenger would gain access to a weapon master state, with all weapons and all functions unlocked. Then another small message appeared. His revenge progress is now at 3.8%. Meanwhile, outside the enemy's stomach, everything felt strangely quiet. The air felt heavy, almost like the calm before a storm. Anyone paying attention would know that this kind of stillness never meant anything good. The bandaged zombie started to feel uneasy. It couldn't understand why the zombie legion hadn't come back to life yet, especially since the challenger was supposed to be dead already. Something wasn't adding up, and it made the creature restless. It kept glancing around, as if expecting something to suddenly go wrong. Then all of a sudden, the big boss's stomach, right where the huge scar was, began to glow. The light slowly grew brighter, pulsing like something inside was waking up. It wasn't normal at all, and it looked like something was about to burst out at any second. The whole thing felt tense, like a bomb about to explode. The two elite zombies immediately noticed the strange glow and the low rumbling sound coming from the boss's stomach. They snapped into alert mode right away, their bodies stiff and ready to react. They had no idea what was happening, but they knew it wasn't good. Whatever was inside there, it definitely wasn't supposed to be alive. Meanwhile, back at Ling Ting's apartment, she sat quietly on the couch, holding the box Wu Jin had given her. She kept staring at it. Deep down, she already had a feeling about what was inside. Even though it came from Wu Jin, she knew it was originally from Yan Hanshuo. She hesitated for a moment, her chest tightening as she thought about it. Part of her didn't want to open it, scared of what it might mean. But another part of her couldn't stop herself. Like, she needed to know, no matter what. When she finally worked up the courage to click the lid open, her eyes widened in shock the moment she saw what was inside. Memories instantly came flooding back to her, pulling her into the past, taking her back to the day Hanshuo first gave her this exact gem in this very room. Back then, she had asked him why he was giving her something like that. Hanshuo just simply smiled and told her that she was always worried about him dying in a dungeon. He explained that the orb was connected to his life force, and whenever she felt anxious, she could open it and check. He told her that if the orb was still glowing, it meant he was alive and safe. That no matter where he was, as long as the light was there, he hadn't died yet. But Ling Ting had pushed it back to him. She told him she didn't want it because she knew herself too well. If she kept it, she would end up checking it all the time, and that would only make her worry even more. In the end, Hanshuo had no choice but to take it back. Now, back in the present, Ling Ting held the orb with trembling hands. Her emotions were all over the place as tears started to fall down her cheeks. The orb was glowing. That could only mean one thing. Somewhere out there, Hanshuo was still alive. Back in the B-rank dungeon, everything exploded into chaos. Wu Jin suddenly burst out of the enemy's stomach with insane speed and force. The impact was so strong that it tore the boss's stomach wide open, sending flesh and energy flying everywhere. It was brutal, messy, and completely unexpected. If the boss could feel pain, that would have been the worst stomachache of its life. The three enemies were completely shocked. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. This was someone who had been poisoned and swallowed whole. And yet here he was, alive and standing like nothing happened. As soon as Wu Jin landed on the ground, the two elite zombies immediately shifted into their fighting stances. Their bodies tensed, ready for battle. Wu Jin, on the other hand, looked calm, almost too calm. He casually pointed out how shocked they looked, like he was enjoying their reaction. And honestly, who wouldn't be shocked? Anyone in their position would have thought he was dead for sure. But instead, he came back like it was nothing, completely fine, and ready to fight again. Wu Jin then adjusted his stance and rested his greatsword on his shoulder. His energy shifted, and it was clear he was serious now. It was game time, and his power was now focused on max speed. The lady zombie grew visibly irritated, wondering how this kid suddenly had a great sword and how he was able to switch weapons so easily. None of it made sense to her, and it only made her more frustrated. Wu Jin noticed their confused faces and just laughed, even though he didn't understand a word they were saying. He guessed they were doubting their own eyes, so he decided to show them a little more of what he could do. He cycled through different weapons so smoothly, like it was nothing. It was obvious that he had mastered all of them. With a confident smirk, he even teased them, saying that this wasn't even the most surprising part yet. He looked completely fired up and clearly enjoying himself now. He switched to the dagger assassin profession and dashed forward without wasting another second. In a blink, he was already behind the lady zombie. A notification suddenly appeared. Tip! Reach the attack target's weak point area. This will cause defense penetrating damage up to 300%. Wu Jin didn't hesitate. He slashed straight at her, aiming for a critical spot, but just as his blade was about to hit, the bandaged zombie jumped in and blocked the attack. Its hands were sliced clean off instead. But the creepy part? The hands instantly started regenerating. Wu Jin didn't even flinch. The moment the hands grew back, he cut them off again. And again. Let's see if you recover faster, Wu Jin said. Or will he slash faster? He kept attacking non-stop, his movements getting faster and more aggressive. Slash after slash, he didn't give the bandaged zombie even a second to recover. It turned into a brutal exchange, regeneration versus pure speed. In the end, the bandaged zombie couldn't keep up. Wu Jin really went into a total frenzy. It was a total bloodbath of slashes, one after another, faster than the eye could even follow. The lady zombie stood there frozen in shock as she watched her partner get turned into a pile of confetti. Without giving her time to react, Wu Jin activated his dagger skill. Flurry of demons. His eyes glowed. Wu Jin's speed exploded as he rushed toward her again, attacking from multiple angles in quick succession. His blades moved like a storm, forcing her to block again and again. Still, she knew she couldn't keep this up forever. Thinking quickly, she decided to create distance. Since daggers had limited range, backing away would give her a better chance. She leaped high into the air, trying to escape and reposition herself closer to the boss. But Wu Jin had already read her move. The moment she created distance, he switched weapons again. This time, he became a bow sharpshooter, maximizing both attack and accuracy. He drew his bow and aimed without hesitation. Then, with a calm release, he fired. The arrow shot through the air at incredible speed and pierced straight through her chest from behind. She dropped to the ground, her body going weak as she struggled to understand what just happened. Her eyes were filled with confusion and fear. She still couldn't understand how he was changing weapons whenever he felt like it. Wu Jin then switched weapons one last time, this time into a scythe reaper with max execution power. Holding the large, terrifying scythe, he slowly walked toward her. Each step felt heavy, final. And for the lady zombie, it was the end.
Thank you all for watching. Please watch this next Giga Chad video, and I'll see you guys next time. Also, support the channel by joining the Summon Club membership. You can also support by just liking the video and being awesome.